Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the Winthrop Town Council meeting at probably, what is it time? 6:02. It's July 6, 2026. We have Roy Weymouth, Aaron White, Andy West, and James Steele present, waiting for Shannon. She's on her way. The other two are absent for this evening. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Right. So start off with public comment piece. Does anybody would like to come up to the podium and make a public comment? Right now is the time to do so. Not seeing any online, not seeing in the audience. No, public comment. It's just have an opportunity to wage your voice if you like Wendy up there on anything. All right. Thank you. All right, let's move on to items 118, consideration of the transit seller permit application for Shakedown Treats and Sweets. Now, is this a renewal? I feel like they had something last year. Yeah, okay, this is just a renewal. So anybody here for Treats and Sweets? I don't see them in the audience. So does the council have any questions?
Make a motion that we can,
No, it's not public. Nope. Go ahead, Andy.
I make a motion that we consider awarding the transient seller permit application from Shakedown Treats and Sweets.
I'll second. Okay, any other discussion? No? Okay, all are in favor? All are in favor. All present, they're in favor. Thank you. All right, let's move to, we're going to jump around a little bit, guys, just kind of get through some of the stuff, just so until Shannon gets here, so we can get into some of the meat of the stuff. What else can we jump to? Let's do items 113, consideration of minutes for June 1st, June 15th, 2026.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? All present are in favor. Thank you. You guys want to try to do the, you guys ready the disbursement warrants?
Make a motion to approve May 2026 disbursement warrants as presented.
Second.
All in favor? All present are in favor. So that was item 130, 116.
And Jim, if you want, we could take up item 130 as well.
Let me look at it. Okay, great. Let's do that. Discussion and consideration of the following matters related to payments of taxes. The rate of interest that shall apply to delinquent taxes during fiscal year 27 as recommended at 7%.
These the same rates we had last year.
The rates change on an annual basis. The state sets the rates. This is the maximum amount, and we always recommend the maximum amount to provide the maximum incentive for people to pay their taxes on time.
What was it last year? Just
I believe it was 7.5% this past year.
Any other discussion?
Sure.
Yes, please.
make a motion to set the interest rate at 7% for delinquent taxes for fiscal year 2027.
Again,
Motion and second. Any other discussion? All are in favor? All present are in favor. Thank you, guys.
Make another motion.
Yes, please.
Make a motion to set the rate of the rate of interest that shall apply to reimbursement of abated taxes at 3%. Oh, wait.
Yes.
Move to set the rate of interest.
Yep.
Overpayment at 3%.
Okay. Yep.
Second.
All in favor? All present are in favor. Thank you, Roy. Catching that one too. So there's one more part of that as well. Move to authorize acceptance of repayment of taxes, including tax clubs.
Second.
All in favor? All present are in favor.
Ms. Who made that motion?
I made the motion. I didn't realize there was 3 pieces to it, but we've now completed items 130. No, we push with that? Do we have another minutes on this one?
No, this is only for June. Yeah. The other thing that we could do one of 2 things if we wait for she. It's where she is the chair of the appointments committee, but we do have an appointment to the Board of Assessment Review.
I can do that. I'm on the appointments committee. Want to do that?
Sure. Let's do items 133.
Yeah, appointments committee recommends Mark Coursey for the Board of Assessment Review. Term expires 12/31/27.
Mark here.
He is not here.
Any discussion? So,
That was a recommendation. That means we need a
yeah, motion.
motion.
Works for MMA. Is that
Board of Assessment Review, that's the town.
any sort of
It is not. So, and he's an attorney for MMA. And so, he knows the law and in fact has an assessment background. So we think that'll actually be helpful as this board hears different cases.
I'll make
Please make a motion.
a motion to appoint Mark Kersey to the Board of Assessment Review.
I'll second.
All in favor? All present are in favor. Thank you. Awesome. Now Shannon's here, so let's loop back to close to the beginning.
We almost cleaned up that page, Jim.
Yeah, so we did great. We're going to move on to items 119, the public hearing amendment of the official zoning map.
So we do have, so unfortunately, let me
609.
Dawn to unmute herself. So our town planner unfortunately had some car troubles today, so she's joining us via Zoom, but she is online, and we also have several members of our planning board here, including our chair, Rick Dorsey. So Dawn, do you want to do an introduction to this, or would you prefer that Rick handle that?
No, I can go ahead and do that. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so Dawn Emerson, your town planner. In the first item that the planning board has on the agenda this evening, and as your town manager noted, there are several planning board members, and I believe Bill Monagle from the Cobblestone Watershed District is in the audience as well. What we're presenting is an amendment to the zoning map, which you adopted in 2024. And we did note at that time that it's not a static document, that we anticipated there may be some corrections as a result of the transfer to digital, and that there would be changes made, as has consistently happened since it was originally adopted. So this evening, would like to, on behalf of the planning board, recommend that the council adopt an amendment to the Resource Protection District on lots on Boot Cove Lane. And if, Anthony, are you able to give me permission to share a screen just for clarity? I can send you a request.
Allowing it right now.
Okay.
So you should be good to go.
Okay. You're with me here. Yeah, it's not, yeah, I'm sorry. It's on my screen, but it's not pulling up. So what it is the parcel viewer. Anthony, I don't know if you know how to pull that up, but on the website, if you look under the assessing department, the code department, on the left-hand side, there is a tab that says parcel viewer, which is your database from assessing all of the information associated with each parcel, in addition to zoning. So you can click parcels, you can find the assessing information tied to it, and zoning. And so you can see the overall zoning map, which is an image of the PDF that you previously approved. So it's representative of that PDF, except for now you have it broken down into parcels and there's more information. It's more interactive. So what the planning board has been looking at is that document or that data set. And bear with me for just a moment, I apologize. And so the parcels that have been depicted in the application are currently zoned resource protection. Thank you. And that if they are also zoned public water district, but there are overlay zones. So the base zone here is resource protection, but there is also underlying and overlaying public water district and shoreland. So the area, there are 5 different components of the resource protection district. And this area here has been delineated as 250 feet back from the resource. But if you look in the zoning ordinance, it's broken out into A through E. And one of those criteria is areas of 2 or more contiguous acres with sustained slopes of 20% or greater. So what Anthony is pulling up there now is the red area is supposed to depict areas of 20% slope or greater. And that's for, contiguous for 2 acres. So it's specifically defined in our ordinance, and that's in accordance with the MDEP Chapter 1000. So this is more specific to this parcel as opposed to the 250-foot delineation. So the criteria that makes this lot or these lots resource protection are the steep slopes. So what's been discussed is amending the map to reflect the actual area that's identified in the zoning ordinance in Chapter 1000. And I do want to, at this point, note, so the proposal is to amend the zoning map so that the entire, the parcels there aren't entirely within the resource protection, and part of them would be resource protection pertaining to the steep slopes, and then part of it will be shoreland. So the map that we put forward depicts the change in the line of the resource protection versus the shoreland, again, where it's entirely in resource protection right now. So that's the simple part, is moving the line. I do want to note that the way that it was posted and the way I presented my letter actually was a little bit not misleading, but wasn't clear that the intention of the planning board is that the 100-foot buffer that's required in the shoreline protection district would be measured from the top of bank and not from the shoreline. So the first part would be resource protection, including the steep slopes, or would be inclusive of the steep slopes. And then beyond that, it would be shoreland, and the setback, the buffer, would be from the top of that bankman, as opposed to currently, if it's just shoreline, it would be from the upland edge of the water of the resource. I think that's pretty much straightforward there. The reason for that is, and I know Bill Monagle and other planning board members, maybe be able to expand on this, but that when a slope is greater than 15%, the intent of having a buffer there to the resource, it's ineffective. It's too steep. The water runs too fast to effectively, remove sediments, etc. from it. So the setback from the top of bank it's not random. It's Bill he had a memo put together that stated where the state recommends that, and states that the slope of greater than 50% is not effective. So that probably wasn't real clear in the letter, in the memo I put together, but it is the intent that the setback, the resource protection, be changed to the top of bank, and that the setback be from there. In order to clarify that, what's before you, I would like to propose, in the language of the zoning ordinance itself, in Article 3:11, you have tables. And it's regarding uses and bulk and space requirements, setbacks, building heights, etc. So in Table 3, I would propose, and the planning board members have not heard how I propose to clarify this. They've just been clear with me that this is our intent. So I think that a footnote could be added under RP shoreline setback, which says 250 feet. And the footnote would say setbacks in areas designated resource protection due to sustained steep slopes shall be 100 feet from the top of slope. And I apologize, that's probably a little bit hard to grasp as you don't have it in writing in front of you. But it's so the proposal is for a map amendment to more clearly depict the resource that is requiring the area to be in resource protection. And then to be clear that the buffer would be measured from the top of the slope.
Your map that you've drawn there and you've blacked out the shoreland zoning, that looks like 100 feet from the shore, not 100 foot from the top of the slope because it doesn't follow the contour of the slope. Is that correct? That map's not accurate?
The map is supposed to represent, the red is supposed to represent areas of steep slopes, contiguous steep slope that would put it in resource protection per Chapter 1000, Maine Department of Environmental Protection. And then beyond that would be shoreland. The red area is supposed
Come
to
up
be
to the podium. Okay, whoever's going to speak, would you just come to the podium so everybody can hear?
Yeah, sure.
Don.
Greg Stewart, I'm a member of the planning board. I also helped kind of understand this map. So what you're seeing is two different lines. The red line is the new resource protection line. The black line is the shoreland zoning. So they're two different zones on top of each other. Does that make sense now?
Yep.
Yeah, but so that line does not depict the 100-foot setback from the top of the.
No, correct.
Slope.
That is the end of the resource protection. What we're proposing is you go to the end of the resource protection, which again, the state sets 20%, DEP state statute sets 20% as resource protection because it basically doesn't provide any protection or negligible protection to the water body. So what we're proposing is we're going to go to the edge of that resource protection more correctly drawn, which is, this is our step forward. So just so you kind of get a sense for what we're trying to understand is a chance to start updating the map. What you see on the screen is a USGS product that is generated from the LiDAR data. Okay, the old resource protection was drawn on 10-foot contours. They just kind of took a crayon and drew a line kind of around where there was steep slopes because that's all they had for topography at the time. So now we have these digital products that lay out exactly what we need to do. They do pixel by pixel comparison. They do the color map and then they smooth it. It's a fantastic product. It's very easy to draw that line. So this is a first cut at changing that resource protection with the next step to possibly change all of Lower Narrows and all of Winthrop to a more correct resource protection area. So this is sort of a pilot project for us to see if we can make sense of it so the board and so you guys kind of understand a little bit more about what we're doing. So what we're doing here is trying to show you both lines, is that there's a resource protection line, which is now the red line, and there's a shoreland zone, which is a black line. So both of those zones apply. If you want to do anything in that zone, you can't build anything. No structures are within the resource protection period. And then if you're in the shoreland zone, what we're suggesting is a 100-foot setback from the resource protection line, which again is going to vary depending on where you are. But if you're still in the shoreland zone, we're going to require a 100-foot setback, which is actually required from the shore in state shoreland protection. It's 250 feet, but the idea is we're going to give a 100-foot vegetated buffer to allow for filtration of any sediment running down to protect the water body. But again, steep slopes don't provide any protection. So that's why we're saying we still want a 100-foot buffer beyond resource protection. And it's not going to be the same everywhere. Where you'll see right now our maps are a very, very homogeneous line going around because again, they didn't have good topography. So now the line's going to be a lot more defined.
So essentially the setback is going to increase in a lot of places.
Yes, but right now, the way the ordinance is in the state guidelines, given our existing resource protection, you cannot build within 250 feet. So the entire resource protection zone, you cannot build in. And in this case, it's incorrect that you're saying you cannot build at all. Because you can see on the lower portion of that line, you're saying you could go back 100 feet and you'd still have 60 or 70 feet to build. Where given the existing ordinance and the existing map, you can't build at all in that entire resource protection zone.
Which is 250 feet.
which is 200, it's drawn at 250 feet. Basically, they did that kind of as a, again, using topography, they just kind of drew those lines and they used 250. They're like, yep, there's steep slopes, so I'm going to draw the line. But there's a lot of areas you'll see when you overlay that map on this map, there's a lot of areas that don't make any sense. The slopes aren't at the right level to be resource protection. And there's other areas that should be resource protection that are not. So
What is the driver of this being picked? This particular parcel being picked?
we had a specific applicant come to us and say, we are on Boot Cove Lane and we want you to review this line. So we did a site visit and we went and looked, and it's a very steep slope, and then it really kind of bends and kind of breaks off. So we said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The resource protection going back 250 feet doesn't make sense in this case because it's not correct. So that was the driver, and we said, hey, this is a good opportunity to test the theory. And the applicant used a consultant to draw that line.
Essentially, there'll be no structures if you followed that red line and you went out 100 feet from that red line. And put setback from that red line. No structures between, they took that black line and set out 100 feet, followed the contour of the red line.
Correct.
That's
The
zone.
planning board would not be allowed to approve would not be allowed to approve a new structure in that zone.
Go ahead, Ian.
Existing structures are non-conforming structures, so that's a different discussion.
Can you explain in regards to this, where we are right now with the resource protection overlay that we currently have? Like
It matches the
Definition.
shoreland zone. It matches the black line right now. So it's basically going to be shrinking resource protection back to the correct slope line.
and the additional intent was 8 feet total from the shore.
250 is the zone
Resource protection as
Yeah.
well, even for, and we didn't.
for that line. Yes.
Is it 2?
It's 250 from the shore. So, and it's basically, again, the basic definition Don read, but essentially they use the USGS topo maps, the 10-foot contours, and said, ooh, there's steep slopes. So we're just going to block off the whole 250 feet because there was steep slopes in there that exceeded 20%. And 20% is the state number. So just so you're very clear, that's not a number we made up, because you can go 19 and you can go 21 and they're not that different. But the state basically set a number and said, if you're above 20, you get zero protection. If you're at 19, you get protection. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that's what the state statute says.
Andy?
So, Rick and Don, please forgive me, but as a town council representative of the planning board, I couldn't speak up about this so much at planning board meetings. First, this appears to be just a little bit of spot zoning. You say it's a pilot project, and it will certainly satisfy the property owners over there, but it may or may not satisfy the whole town, and it's not going to get the attention that a rezone for the whole town would get. I really don't like this because it's not going to affect the whole town. It's not going to draw attention of all the townspeople. And it looks like South Pointing. On top of that, I read through Bill's paperwork, and on most things, I agree with Bill. I'm good.
As well. I mean, as far as reading through Mr. Monagal's letter, thank you for sending us that, by the way. I mean, a project on our drinking water, our water supply for the town, like Upper and Lower Narrows, and sharing the same water level and everything, and being the clearest water in the town. I think that that's a consideration. So
I think
agreement.
it's going to set a precedent. Once we do this, we won't be able to back out of it. After 30 some odd years on the zoning board, I know what happens when you make a mistake that sets a precedent.
Aaron, go ahead.
My understanding is that this is in an effort to more accurately reflect the reality of the basically the landscape and the effects of, whether it's percentages wise, whether or not just one blanket statement is going to say, 250, 200 from the initial, wherever the slope is. I still think that's a function of the planning board to make stipulations with whatever development would be to ensure that vigorous methods would be used to slow down water. And yes, you can do that on steep slopes. You're not going to, hopefully, you would never allow someone to clear cut and not realistic. And this is, my understanding is this is just the first of what you hope to do townwide. So this isn't just an exception for Boot Cove Lane in one property, just came up as a result of a property owner saying, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. And they had the ability to go and look and make information more accurate, looking at the contour, which is to me better information than just I don't think putting a blanket statement saying, you know, yes, there's development around Narrows, there's development all around Narrows, upper and lower. So I don't agree with that position. I think doing this would not harm or change that. It's my opinion.
So quick question. Now you kind of started talking about it. How does this affect the properties that have already been kind of already developed down there? Is this?
It's no different than any change. It's a non-conforming lot. It's a non-conforming lot. There's properties, you know, everywhere that are 10 feet away from.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
They come back to us and, you know, as long as they're not doing, state law kind of dictates how they come back to us.
Sure.
Non-conforming structure, you can't do substantial improvement, which is something we're still working on defining.
Right.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And then second thing is you cannot make the structure more non-conforming. So which means you can never move it closer. And if
Right.
you're going to tear it down, you can't rebuild in place. You
Okay.
can't. You have to be conforming. That's the state requirement. And we follow the state laws and that's what's in our ordinance.
Yep.
So yeah,
I just was getting
non-conforming-
clarification on it. Yeah.
Non-conforming is non-conforming. So
Perfect.
again, it's everything that's there that would be non-conforming would be grandfathered.
Great.
If they came back to us, then they would be held to the same standards depending on what they were doing for improvement.
For changes. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Hold on. I think Rick's got something. Go ahead, Rick.
Angles. Anthony, if you go back to the previous map, please. Relative to spot zoning, this is the first step to the commitment we made to the council with the digitizing of the zoning maps, which is a roll of maps in Mark's office. And some time ago, board members worked on that to digitize and have the capability we have today. The commitment we made in the beginning of that was to go through and look at the different zones and update them as it makes sense. So Turner at KB has committed to get us updated maps that show us where all these resource protection areas are in Winthrop. And we're going to work on what the difference is in those areas based on the new data that Greg talked about. So if you look at that map, this Boot Cove Road change in resource protection affects on map 6, lot 2E, 2C, 2A, 10, 11, and 12. So there's quite an area there that is represented with this change. That said, the applicant that got us looking at this is, I believe, and Don, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 2E. And if you look at 2E, that's that pie-shaped piece down there, triangular-shaped piece. What happened? Okay, there we are. That's the triangular-shaped piece down below. Now, from a practical matter, we went and walked that site several weeks ago, quite a while ago, actually, because the applicant was asking us to consider them building there. It was very obvious when we got onto that property, the steep slope, the resource protection, that's of concern. And at the time we talked about it in general, we talked about the 100-foot setback from that to be a building site. Now, when you get back that 100 feet, there's a flat building site there. It's probably, I'm going to guess, 100 feet or less from the road. If you look at these lots, several homes are on these lots already. I'm going to say 4. And this probably be the fifth. So there's building activity going on in the zone. So it's not a blanket, black and white situation. There's activity going on relative to this zone. So I wouldn't call it a spot zone myself. And the intent is for us to go to work. Now, that said, the reverse of that is if you folks don't support that activity, then we're wasting our time doing it. And we'll move on to some other priority. And there's plenty of them.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Andy?
Yeah, I support this idea. I just don't support it as a spot zone in response to one particular applicant, if that's the case. Well, we can, well, okay, we can agree to disagree, Rick. But if this was townwide, okay, and it should be, because we have the new information, is something I spoke about for years, that we need to improve our zoning maps, and now I'm getting it. But if this was townwide proposal and the townspeople were able to see, because as you said, this is a sort of a trial shot, okay? And it should set a precedent for what comes. And if we agree to this, we're setting that precedent. And the townsfolk may not understand what we're doing, may not even be interested because this is one little piece and it doesn't apply to them. But if we do this research on all waterfront properties, we're going to have more people hear about it. And then we try to make the changes on all the waterfront properties, we're going to get more feedback. Plus, Bill makes a very good point when he says that it's almost impossible to control erosion in slopes over, what did you say, 30%, Bill?
Hey, can we, if we're going to have a conversation, can we have it at the mic so that people online will be able to hear it? And I'm not meaning to cut you off, Bill, but if you have something to say, if you would come to the mic.
Yeah, come to the mic because nobody can hear it. Yeah, if you'd like to come over here, use this unaddressed, then you guys can do dual. But Greg, go ahead. And you had a comment. I think you had a comment.
I was just saying, I just wanted to correct Andy. This is not a spot zone. That's not what this is. This is a correction to the map. Spot zone would be like, we're going to pick this and make this commercial. We're not changing anything. It's still staying resource protection, period. It's not a spot zone. It's a correction to the line that was drawn. That's it. So just to be clear, it's not a spot zone.
Thank you, Greg.
Just what I
Will,
want.
go ahead. Speaking to that microphone, you pull it towards
You're on?
Yeah, just talk. It's already on. Just talking.
Okay, it's on.
Yep.
That the LiDAR graphic that they show looks to me like they had it filtered for 20% slopes because they're all the same color until there's no slope. They're all red, and then it's all yellow. But I will tell you, that first 100 feet is 40% slope. It rises 40 feet and 100 feet.
There are three different, there's actually, it goes from 21 to 25%, and then the dark orange is 25 to 29%, and then the orange is 30 plus.
Yeah, I know.
And it is
40.
colored. It is all colored. The LiDAR, it is colored greater than 30 is that
Right.
dark maroon.
Right.
It is. I know the product person that did it. So
It's yeah, it's.
shoreland zoning. Right now, currently, yes, that's the current map, yes.
So with this section down here, is that still going to be resource protection or is that just shoreland? I mean, are we just talking of?
Right, where the line begins and ends was the section we were proposing to change.
This won't be.
That would
resource-
not be changed.
Oh,
So where the line ended perpendicular to the shoreland, right there, yep, right where your pencil is, that's where it's going to terminate. And then it'll go up.
Yep, those three lots.
so it comes and wraps back in and then goes up here.
Yep.
Is where she's talking about, is there actually a resource that's being protected? I mean, it doesn't show steep slopes there. Is there?
So again, kind of Rick mentioned that there is a process in place where we're trying to get all of the different data layers that resource protection covers, and KV Cog is going to help us go and say, okay, we're going to, go and look at these. So again, this is the first step in trying to understand. Steep slope is one of the resources.
So you are only addressing on
Steep
this
slope.
particular steep slope.
And we did look, and it doesn't appear that any other, the archaeological finds, endangered species didn't exist on at that location. So we did a quick search, didn't find any of the other resource protection items in there, but we didn't search the entire water body and we didn't search the entire town. That's where we wanted to get KV Cog's help to go and actually pull and start doing this for all of the lakes. Because there are other things that fall into resource protection. Some of them are very unique, like endangered species. Can be a tough one because there's plants and animals and they're not on the same web page and they're not easy to find. And where is their habitat? And the state has some good information, but it's not all geolayers that's easy to pull up. So some of it is older maps that are scanned in, things like that. So it isn't quite as easy as pressing a button, unfortunately.
So I'm assuming that all of this stuff is, we had a discussion when we were doing this about some resource protection actually on my property as an example. And I was told that this couldn't be done at the time. Everything was field verified. That was the answer, is everything was field verified. This is still
Mr. Chairman?
going to be field verified, correct?
So what do you mean by field verified?
The setback from the resource. Survey. Ask Dawn. I talked to Dawn about it.
So the 100-foot back from resource protection line?
Yeah, because through my property, there's a runoff through my property, and they've got it opened up to I think Rick, you went down and looked at it.
The resource protection, right?
And in any of the previous maps, there was no resource protection, but in this new mapping system, it marked it as resource protection. So that was my question. Why is it resource protected all of a sudden? And
So it changed?
it couldn't be changed. We discussed it. And the answer was, well, if you want to do anything, it would be field verified. We didn't go through this whole process. This wasn't an option to go through and actually change the map. The only thing I had for a discussion or recourse was that if I ever wanted to do anything, it'd be field verified. But on the map, it still shows resource
Planning
protected.
board's not allowed to use field verification as a method. It's not in our ordinance. It's not in the rules. It's not in the state rules. That's not allowed anywhere. If they came to the planning board and they're in resource protection, they say, I want to build a new structure. The answer is black and white, no. They can go to the ZBA, but our answer has to be no, because that's what our ordinance says.
Okay.
There is no field verification in our planning, in our ordinance.
Right.
Well, can I go?
Thank you.
Not trying to be argumentative, but I got more or less the same type of answer from Mark as Roy got from Dawn, that all maps are subject to field verification.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, Dawn. I
Yeah,
think it's
if
you,
you-
Dawn. I can't tell, but
It is, I'm sorry.
no, you're
So,
fine.
I'm listening to Roy and to Andy, and when we talked about this in 2024, there were individuals looking at properties saying, well, why is this resource protection? And we did say, well, it would have to be field verified. Is there a wetland there? Is it mapped incorrectly? And this is a step closer towards the map reflecting actual conditions. So it is working in that direction. You know, there's still, it's going to be a living, breathing document. There will be amendments as we move forward, as more technology becomes available. But at this time, we have Turner at KV Cog, who is helping us break out into layers, into data layers, the elements, the A through E, the resource protection district, so that you could then go to an area and click the layers on and off to see what designated your property as resource protection. And it is already underway. That's why the planning board did not feel this was spot zoning, because we are currently working with Turner. He's working on creating these data layers. We don't anticipate this to be a year project. We're hoping fall, I believe is what we had said. So We hope to have the rest of the information right on the heels of this. This is kind of what instituted something that we had already talked about doing, and it really just got the ball rolling faster.
Thank you. Could you please come up to the podium, please? Oh. I thought you could stay right here if you'd want to, Bill, so you could continue to talk. It wasn't, I thought you stepped down because you were excusing yourself from that. But I'm happy to set you up. Oh. Okay.
So we've been
Just have to
dealing with this.
introduce yourself, sorry.
Nate Whalen, Portland Water District. I'm working with a guy on Boot Cove
There
to,
we go. Perfect.
yeah. The goal of this project was to align the map with the ordinance using the best available data that we had. So that's the goal of it. And I don't know where it's gone from there, but discussions that I heard were adding a setback to a setback. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's where this is heading, but I've never seen anything like that before. And it doesn't exist in the ordinance. It doesn't exist in Chapter 1000. It doesn't exist anywhere to have a setback to a setback. And that's opening up a can of worms that no one even knows about. There would be more people here if they knew, like, the number of non-conforming lots that are going to be created by this, non-conforming structures. Adding a setback to a setback is a bad thing. So
That's a good segue to Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
I actually agree with Nate. I had communication with Colin Clark, DEP, head of shoreland zoning on this. And it seems pretty clear that the end of the resource protection as defined by the 20% slopes is going to be a good 100 feet from the shore. Then if you're going to have shoreland zoning, DEP has to allow you to build right up to the edge of the slope. They will not recognize a 100-foot setback in shoreland zoning. And he said that's something that is missed because no one's been doing this kind of thing before. And what would happen is the 100-foot setback that is supposed to be there for shoreland zoning, all shoreland zoning, not just resource protection, would be non-functional because it's too steep. And if you build right at the top of that, it's essentially akin to not having a buffer at all. But if you move back 100 feet, DEP has no regulatory authority over that. And our discussion sort of went to what would be the problem with just extending the resource protection that extra 100 feet, because you can't build or do anything in resource protection anyway. So don't make it a setback from resource protection. Take the top of the slope and go another 100 feet, make that resource protection. In this case, it might be 220 feet deep and not the 250 that it currently is right now. And I'd like to also point out that split zones like this are not that common. We haven't seen them around here, although a lot of our towns don't have zoning. But I also got an answer to a question I had because I really wanted this to be confirmed, and I thought I knew the answer, and I did. Town has discretion on this. To think that you are only limited to the 20% slope for resource protection is wrong. According to Colin Clark, the town does have the ability to have a lot like this where steep slopes exist on a portion of the lot to be split district. That's fine. But there's nothing that says they have to do this. Some town will keep the whole lot in resource protection while others will create a split district. So to answer your question, the town does not have to rezone this lot as a split district, but any areas that meet the criteria of our resource protection have to be mapped that way unless they are previously developed. And but it's like there's nothing compelling the town to do anything here. And basically, if the resource protection is going to stop at the top of a 34, 32% slope, whatever, I mean, it tapers off very quickly up at the top. It's steep right to the top. That is not a buffer. That's non-functional. And if there's no regulatory authority by DEP to regulate, or, you know, how messy that would be to have a 100-foot setback from a setback, I agree with that. Our recommendation is to just extend the resource protection in there. Who's going to be able to keep track of all this? Code enforcement officers? hopefully they will, or to know that they can do that or have to do that. I think it just makes it a little bit more of a little bit more acrobat or whatever you want to call it, just jumping more hoops in there. I think the simplest thing is just to extend the resource protection to include a 100-foot setback from the slope. And then I guess the other point I have to say is that if you're going to that point where you're going to 220, 225, 230 feet, why not just keep it at 250? It just seems to me is like, and if you look at that map or the LiDAR, this is the narrowest of the setbacks, and it's 100 feet, maybe 120 feet of slope. Those lots to the north, they broaden deeper where it's probably 150 to the end of shoreline or resource protection. You'd be going another 100 feet to the road. I just feel like this is an unnecessary move, and I think it can just be a headache in the future for any code enforcement officer or anyone that's going to try to, figure out which lot, how deep is that resource protection on, let's say, lot 2A versus 2E. One of the recommendations I made to the planning board is, number one, have that additional setback so you have a functioning buffer strip to protect the water quality. And the other thing is, don't have this line meandering through all 6 lots. Take the deepest of those 6 lots for the resource protection zone and apply that equally to all 6 lots. But you don't have to do anything to any of these lots.
Aaron?
So, Bill, we have an obligation to consider this from the property owner's point of view as well, right? They pay taxes, they elect us, that's why we're here. Tell me why that would be fair to one property owner, to 2E versus 2C, if we make one blanket line, especially now that we have the ability to have that individualized information. I mean, there's properties all over this that technically would not exist today, correct?
Right.
But you have to go to the mic just so Don and the rest.
Prior to 2013, looking at Google Earth time series, there was only one structure on that side of Boot Cove Lane in any of these zones. 2013. 2016, a second house popped up. That's the neighbor to 2E. They are outside 250 feet. They are abiding by resource protection. Then 2024, another one showed up. Between the 2 that were already there, they're 175 feet from the water. I'd like to know how they got a permit in 2024. And I've looked at the conveyance on the tax maps. That lot was conveyed in 2024, and this house popped up on 2024.
And then what is the role and why hasn't the state been involved?
Well, the state's not going to be called in unless the town calls the state, alerts the state that there's an issue to be, to be addressed here. But I guess getting back to the, I'm getting back to the property owner.
I've had DEP come out and talk about different other properties without the town's recommendations.
Sure, but I mean, this apparently didn't come to their attention.
Right.
But I guess
So that's an enforcement issue though, right?
but I guess the other matter, I guess I would say about the property owner on 2E is this lot had been zoned resource protection long before that lot was conveyed. So, the ordinance is the ordinance. It's not like somebody didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
But at the same time, so your concern is more so the individual lot.
Well, because that's the only one we're talking about here today, really, that's going to affect.
But our decision would affect many more than just that one
Right,
lot.
no, my concerns are watershed wide, as I put in my letter to you folks, back in 2007. We worked with the Winthrop Utility District Town of Winthrop's town manager, CEO, and Maine Rural Water to look at ways to protect Lower Narrows Pond and Upper Narrows Pond. And
Your own testimony, practically, in practical terms, speaking terms, it's not effective.
it's not what?
Effective. It's not working.
Oh, no, it wouldn't be effective if people are able to build 100 feet from the lake on a 40%, 35% slope. And no one here is doing that because I said 2 of the 3 anyways are outside 250, almost 300 feet, as I measured it on here on Google Earth. You can drag the ruler and measure the distance. They're outside that. The other home, I don't know how they snuck in there at 175, but they did it between 2016 and 2024. So I guess you'd have to look at the building permits and see see how that went. I doubt if that came to the planning board.
You can go up. Go up to.
So no.
Roy might have a question.
No, but I just want to just point out is that, you know, look, as I was going to say tonight, we were charged over 50 years ago by the legislature to protect and improve the lakes and ponds. We work with our member towns. We work very closely with the town of Winthrop as the others, and also with the Winthrop Utility District, because we respect and want to protect the drinking water supply for the town of Winthrop. And contrary to what people say, Lower and Upper Narrows are ecologically and hydrologically the same lake. They are at the same elevation. Fish swim back and forth through them. I have personally observed on windy days in the summer when water levels are low and there's not much flow, but the wind is coming from the south, water is blowing to the north under that culvert. And I just look at it as there's a lot that's invested in that power by that drinking water treatment plant and everything else. And if the lake goes south, upper and lower, goes anywhere south, that's going to cost the town of Winthrop and the ratepayers here a little bit more money to try to upgrade that plant. And I think here we have an opportunity to just be protective of really the cleanest lake in the Cobbossee Watershed District, 11 out of 18 years, and regularly, great cold water fish full of oxygen in the bottom of Lower Narrows. And I just would not want to see the regulations and the protection measures relaxed. Because I don't know where this would go if you can allow people to build on the top of a slope 100 feet from the, you know, if you don't have a setback from the top of the slope.
Okay, so that might, just one more question here
Yes.
for clarification. Now you say relaxed. Can you define what you mean by relaxed in regards to this change being more specific to a certain property versus a blanket line?
No. The 100-foot setback would pretty much equalize everything with all other shoreline zoning protection.
Versus what we're doing now, or what we could propose or amend, the amendment would do, what would that do?
Well, I'm a little confused about what's being proposed here. I thought I had heard that there's going to be a 100-foot setback from the top of the slope, but I'm then hearing someone saying you're not really in agreement with that.
Can somebody on the planning board address that?
Verify that. I guess.
That was what our original proposal was, to draw the line at the top of slope and then put a 100-foot buffer on it
Okay.
to, again, align with shoreline zoning so then the town could apply that. Then it would be in our ordinance.
So
Thank you, Greg.
help me understand this 250-foot setback. I know you're saying the 250-foot setback is from the slope, from the lake. From the lake back 250 feet is the setback for resource protection. What if that slope went back at 20% or greater than 20%, more than 250 feet? Shouldn't it outline that 250 feet? Shouldn't it outline around the top of slope?
Theoretically, yes, to be correct. But that's, again, the maps were drawn on USGS topo maps with 10-foot contours and the data just wasn't that accurate. So yes, to be correct, they should have drawn it because there are areas where it should have been drawn back further.
That can be achieved now, right? In theory.
With this data, yes, that's the idea.
Come back. Please. Thank you.
I just want to say,
Go ahead, Roy.
I completely disagree with making a blanket window across everybody's property, or it's just not fair to the property owners. I do understand where if it was in resource protection and somebody purchased it in resource protection and knowingly and either is now trying to change it to build on it, I understand where that can be an issue.
So one of these lots in this stretch, the data shows that the setback would be 160 feet. And then if you add 100 feet to that, now you're at 260 feet, which is worse problem than it was before for them. And not that 21% is terrible and 19% is good. You just got to pick a line and go with it. And using the best available data to pick the line, to match the ordinance, seems like the most logical step in this whole thing. And that's where we're coming on it.
But am I wrong in thinking that if we go, if this is designated resource protection, which it is now, but if we're still going to maintain the resource protection designation to the top of the slope. If we went out 250 feet from there, I mean, that would basically eliminate all of those lots as buildable, correct?
Yeah.
Imagine so.
So the resource protection zone would just apply in the areas of the 20% slope. Then beyond that, you get into the regular shoreline zoning.
100.
Right.
50.
Right.
It would be from the top.
Hey, Bill, just so everyone online can hear you as well.
At the top of the slope and resource protection ends and shoreland zoning starts. The 100-foot setback in shoreland zoning, according to DEP, has already been satisfied by the 100-foot setback in the resource protection, which is a non-functioning buffer strip because it's too steep. But they can't make you go back another 100 feet into shoreland zoning. The town can do that by making another setback in shoreland zoning.
Why wouldn't the state have done that? What would be the purpose for the state to not have adopted that?
It was just an oversight is what I understand. It's like look at the
Bago Lake.
No, split zoning is becoming somewhat new, for this. Typically, if you have 20-foot percent slopes that on your lot that make any part of your shoreland zoning, shoreland zoning goes back 250 feet. If it makes it like a resource protection candidate, it's usually all 250 feet, just like the town has zoned it. 250 feet resource protection.
There could be mitigating strategies that would make a slope a functional buffer.
And that's what we're talking about right here is that 100-foot setback in resource protection from the top of the slope.
You're saying just completely disregard the 20% or whatever the grade is, that there's not any feasible thing that the planning board could say that they could do.
You can't do anything to the 20 to 30% slope to make it function any better as a buffer strip than it is right now. Because they can't do anything in resource protection anyways.
Would have to go to the state and get a plan approved.
Not that I'm aware of. The state can't allow them to. You can only build in resource protection if you own a lot that has nowhere else on the lot that you can build a home and it is your primary residence. And I don't think you can prove, you also have to prove some kind of hardship. And hardship is not buying a piece of land which is zoned very strictly and then saying, now I bought this land, now you got to lower the regulations to let me build on it.
State could approve a plan on the grade that would allow, or they could come together and come up with a plan to mitigate runoff.
That is possible, Aaron. The thing is, I've been doing development reviews for all 8 planning boards for a lot of years.
Right.
And I could tell you, look at the hours most of these towns have for CEOs. They're not going to track every little special requirement for individual house lots. They don't even like allowing single-family residential lots. DEP doesn't in a subdivision to have someone be able to put let's say an underdrained soil filter in their backyard to treat their own runoff because the code enforcement officer has to then go on their property, go around, or someone has to inspect it to see that it's even been built, much less. But a buffer is something that's obvious to anyone. And there's nothing that's going to make our telephone ring faster than someone looking across a lake and seeing someone down and 20 feet from the water with a chainsaw. We know whether the buffer strip's being cut or not. But if someone has to do housekeeping on some engineered system, that's out of sight, out of mind. And I'll tell you, it's not going to function.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Bill is right in the zoning law. Hardship can't be the action of an owner, as in say buying a lot. Okay, or a previous owner, as in say buying a lot. Okay, so you know, if somebody buys a lot and comes to the planning board, you know, or disagrees with the decision of code enforcement, lands are on the zoning board, there's not a lot we can do. There's no gray area there in that rule. Okay, it's pretty rock solid.
Thank you. Sir?
So, so the lot that, one of the lots in question that we're talking about, there's a steep slope and then it's a gradual slope and then it banks down to the side. And so with each of these situations, using the best available infiltration and techniques is the way to go, for sure. And some lots, you have a steep slope and then it goes in reverse and goes to a negative slope. So you can't make rules to apply to every single situation in every case. You just use the best data that you have and you set the line and then you go from there. And then there's different layers of this stuff. So there's the zoning layer, there's the enforcement layer. So the code officer has a duty to go out there and make sure this place is done right and not polluting and the plans are legit and all the runoff is taken care of. So there's different layers of this stuff too. And the lot owner for the one that we're talking about, he has no intention, and that's why he hired me to come in and help him do this stuff, is to make sure he's not polluting the lake. He doesn't want to cause any problems. That's the place that he wants to enjoy, and he's willing to put money into the road. He's willing to do all kinds of upgrades on the whole system that to fix it, to make the whole thing better for everyone down there. And I just think using the best data that we have and using the rules that we have, the best data that we have is the way to go and won't cause any more problems for anyone else.
Another quick one.
Go ahead, Andy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that Bill touched on, and bear in mind that I spent probably the better part of 30 years on the zoning board, we were always careful. Some would say overly permissive, but nevertheless, we were always careful not to put conditions on a permit or permission that were extremely difficult for the code enforcement officer to enforce. We always kept in mind the workload on the code enforcement officer and always tried to be very subjective.
Greg, can you come back up to the podium just for some clarification? Can we get a good, because I think there's confusion. Can we get a good understanding of what is in place now that the Cobbossee watershed wants to maintain, correct? And versus what this amendment would look like?
So the amended line and rule was the new red line.
Okay. And the black line is what?
The black line is shoreline zoning, which is actually the old resource protection line. So you can say that's what the change is. And then a change to the ordinance to add what
The
Don
100
stated,
foot
the 100 foot
from the red line.
We would be adding a buffer from that line.
which is more individualized based per property versus just taking out a whole area. It's my take. Is that correct?
Very, very true. Yes.
Okay. So.
But again, it's
I have
the
no
most,
problem with
most correct, but still trying to apply
it.
a buffer zone.
Beyond the red line.
No different
line
than if
is
you were
different.
in, the idea was no different. So if we're saying 20% slope doesn't provide any buffer, right? That's sort of the state. That's what you heard from Bill. That's
Right.
kind of what the science bleeds out. You had to draw a number.
Right.
And then from there, we're saying normal shoreline zoning, you have to maintain 100 foot based on main shoreline zoning. So we're saying by adding 100 feet from the top of the slope, again, we can do that in our ordinance and say, we're going to add that.
Yes.
Is that a little bit too complicated? That's up to you to kind of help guide us. We think it's pretty straightforward,
I
but
do too.
if you think it's complicated, let us know.
I don't. I think the issues Bill has raised are legit, meaning that enforcement is important.
Yep.
So we'll have to address that moving forward. Obviously, I think it's a different issue. But yeah, so individualizing, so instead of making that huge box, the planning board wants to do is to make it so it follows the contour 100 feet,
Right.
which is, in my opinion, fairer to landowners. And I understand the resource protection aspect of it as well. I think we did what we could with what information and tools we had at the time. But as we have technology that lets us accurately reflect the true risk, I think that's the way to go. That's my opinion. So that would be, I'm comfortable with this. Now, are we in a public hearing still?
Yes, we are.
So you're aware?
Anybody else? Oh. No? Yes, please. Sure. Yep.
Okay.
May want to slide that down for you, Wendy. There you go.
Oh, yeah. So. All right. So for the record, my name is Wendy Dennis. I'm a 40-year resident of Winthrop. I've worked in Winthrop longer than that. And as you know, I'm a limnologist with the Cobbossee Watershed District. So I have some knowledge of this topic. And basically, my opinion is that this proposal should be voted no, or at least tabled for further discussion. I think as proposed, it is a bad idea. And I don't want to, this is nothing personal. It may have come from good intentions. I respect the planning board and the town planner. I thank Anthony or the council or whoever decided that Winthrop should have a town planner. I think planning is complicated, especially for a volunteer board. So it's nothing against the people who came up with this idea. But the reasons I have against it are, there's two main ones. One is that it's based on the erroneous assumption that the town needs to do this to be in compliance with state regulations, which I don't agree with. And two, I think it's being done without an understanding of the unwanted consequences of its enactment, that being increased pollutant loading to Lower Narrows Pond. So regarding the first one, Bill has already told you that the state shoreline zoning coordinator has advised that the 250-foot shoreland zone, 250 feet back from the water's edge, can include a resource protection district, the full 250-foot depth, even if the criteria for putting it into resource protection, such as the steep slope, doesn't cover every foot of that 250-foot zone. There is no requirement that only the area covered by slopes that are 20% or greater be included in the resource protection zone. The memo from the town planner heavily references what appears to be a misunderstanding regarding that fact. And the memo from the town planner, the second paragraph implies that the current resource protection district is not in compliance or is inconsistent with state shoreline zoning requirement. And this isn't true according to the information that CWD received from the state DEP. The fourth paragraph points to this KVCOG townwide mapping effort, which again seems to include a false premise when it says, quote, it would correct the zoning map to reflect the resource protection district as defined by the applicable ordinance and state regulations, end quote. Our information says that there is no such correction required. So I would ask that the mapping project be reviewed with respect to its goals and assumptions before it goes any further, just to make sure that it's being done for good purposes and you know what you want to accomplish, and not it's being done because there's a thought that you have to stop the resource protection district at the top of the slope, because that's not true. And that's why when you're talking about then having a second zone with this 100-foot setback, that's why it would be better to have the whole new, if there's going to be a new resource protection district, include that what has been referred to as a setback, so that if the slope, top of the slope was at 120 feet, then the resource protection district would still extend another 100 feet so that nothing could be disturbed for 220 feet. But to have a second zone and you set a setback from it, then the code enforcement officer has to make sure that everything's happening correctly within that area, and that's just not a good idea. And plus you have to define what is the setback for. Is it for a structure or is it for any activity? Because if you want the 100 feet beyond the slope to function as a buffer, It's no disturbance. So this two different zones within what's now the two districts within the 250 feet is not a good idea. And then, so then I'm led to disagree with the 6th paragraph, which justifies the request, which I'm assuming means the request by a Boot Cove Lane lot owner in the Resource Protection District, justifying it because it is in keeping with a mapping project that is underway. I question the justification for some aspects of the mapping project, not the idea that, you know, using technology to fine-tune things is bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that the justification misinterprets the planning board's zoning discretion and the state requirements. And I ask that the applicant not be granted the rezoning request, which would implement an as yet unfinished mapping project that may need to be adjusted. It doesn't feel good to deny an applicant, but it is irresponsible to make a change for the wrong reasons. I think it's too early to grant any changes to just this area in Boot Cove Lane when this whole project hasn't been done and you haven't seen what else you run into as you're looking at these resource protection zones around the town and you want to possibly change them. So I wouldn't call it spot zoning, but it's a similar concern to what Andy has expressed. And then the second wrong reason for doing this, in my opinion, is that it would lessen current protection of Lower Narrows Pond water quality. So this action would be unfair to the town as a whole. The purpose of the Boot Cove Lane land being in the Resource Protection District is to protect lake water quality. The consequence of proposed rezoning would be to remove water quality protections. And Bill has already explained that with respect to the need for runoff and pollutant buffer. We've talked about that endlessly tonight about the edge of the steep slope. But I want to add a different perspective. Winthrop promotes itself, our town, as a lakes community. On the town website, the About Us section begins with, Winthrop is a 38 square mile town in Kennebec County, Maine, with more than 6 square miles of sparkling lakes and ponds. Its 11 water bodies, make it a destination for outdoor recreation. We, Winthrop, are inviting other people to come here to live and to recreate because we are blessed with an abundance of lakes. We, Winthrop, receive economic benefit from both tourism and lakefront property taxes. So we need to be good stewards of our lake resources. But I think this proposal at the moment goes in the opposite direction. It will add pollutants to the best quality lake in town. Will it ruin the lake? No, not by itself. Will it negatively impact water quality? Yes, especially as you expand it to other areas. Is water quality degradation acceptable to Cobussy Watershed District? No, it violates our legislative charter. Is it acceptable to the state of Maine? No, it would violate the state's water quality classification. Is it acceptable to our town? I would hope not. I expect not. I don't for a minute think that anyone involved with this proposal has put it forth intentionally ignoring the potential impact. But I think there's a lack of understanding. And I also want to stress that if you make it too complicated, that's by having the two different zones, two different districts in this area, it's going to be more work for our already overworked code enforcement officer. It's going to be make more room for violations, and I've been reporting violations to our code enforcement officer now of things that are going on Lower Narrows Pond. It's hard to keep everything, all the activities being done legally. And then there'd be more room for misunderstanding by property owners. It's simpler if it's just all resource protection, whether it's back to the 250 standard or something that varies lot to lot. But all resource protection district would be the way to go. the most transparent thing, and this was talked about with respect to transparency, the most transparent thing to do is to zone it all resource protection. Then all the rules for within resource protection would be clear to the property owner. The most cost-effective way to protect the lake is to keep the resource protection district intact. So I think that now's the time to either withdraw this proposal or vote no on this proposal, not to accept an intent that hasn't really been specified or drawn out as a specific proposal. And I know it's complicated, and I appreciate all your thinking about it and the opportunity to offer you my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Rick, can you come to the podium, please?
I like to wrap things up.
Thank you.
You all designate us as the planning board. They elected me as chair. I facilitate the process to fix things. This is one of those things we're trying to fix. We try very hard with public hearings, with public input, with involvement, with all the folks that are here tonight, relative to the work we did on this particular project. All the folks that spoke tonight, to some extent, knew and were involved with this process, either at the site, at the meeting. So you designate us to create things for you to go review and decide if it needs appropriate for the town. You have the authority, one, to create us. Two is to support the work we do. With that said, we had a unanimous vote on this change. Now, we talked about slopes and the data and the technology and all that good stuff. We committed you folks 4 years ago to create digital maps and go to work on fixing the zones on those maps. We're working at that. Roy, relative to your situation, Dawn and I went out and looked at that 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever. And that's a little more complicated than what we're talking about, I think. The field verification was to determine what that soil was out there and whether that could be changed in the appropriate zone. And I understand that clearly. That said, we put this in front of you today. You have the authority. We had the authority to change it. You had the authority to authorize it. As I understand it, it goes to the DEP next, gets to review it. And then from there, it becomes whatever happens. Whether you reject it, he rejects it. That said, it determines where we go forward with fixing whatever the errors are in this town. Now, that said, I've heard a lot about code enforcement. I've heard a lot about the past. Code enforcement in itself, if indeed it's that big a problem, then we need to staff it. We need to go to work and staff it. Because we all get feedback. We all give feedback relative to these issues with code enforcement. There isn't a week goes by that members of our board doesn't give Mark or Dawn feedback on some issue we see that is a potential violation, may not have a permit, is a hazard to our bodies of water. Many of us live on the water. And we're as good stewards as anybody on taking care of the water. And frankly, why we're involved in the planning board. And commit our time to trying to fix things. Now, we're not out there trying to change a property if indeed it doesn't make sense. We're not out there trying to change a zone if it doesn't make sense. We're trying to do what makes sense. And about every application we have that we're involved with, we go look at. We walk it, we determine what the issues are. We got applications right now pending because we don't agree with what they want to do. That's a tough job. That's our job. You gave us that job. And so I hope you understand, I hope you appreciate that the planning board is working very hard for you and trying to do things properly. Do we get it right every time? No. But we're trying to do it right, and we're trying to get your help to help us with that process. And thank you. Oh, and by the way, I appreciate the staffing.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick.
the new members. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Think, as I've been sitting here listening to this, one of the things that kind of pops up in my head is if this slope was water instead of a slope, we'd have 100-foot setback there. Is it really any different? I mean, you can delineate where the top of the slope is. If that was, if you had a 100-foot setback from there, if the water came up to that point, you'd be okay with a 100-foot setback. That's my
If
thought.
I understand the point, the whole debate is about phosphorus runoff.
Right.
The slope is what creates that phosphorus runoff. And what we're trying to do is protect the lake, the water that you're talking about, regardless where it is, from that phosphorus runoff and the algae bloom that comes from it.
But is there going to be any more phosphorus runoff if the structure is 100-foot back? You see what I'm saying? Is there going to be a difference in phosphorus runoff? And I don't know. I'm asking this. Would there be a difference if say the house was 100-foot back from the top of the slope? Is there an additional phosphorus runoff? How do I explain that?
Maybe I can help you with that, Roy. If some of the structure and how it's designed. For instance, if you put a regular cape roof on and it rains and it runs off and all that water goes down that slope and you're putting phosphorus into that lake. If you put a shed roof in that's running the other way and you got proper drainage and it's not ending up in the lake as well, then that's a better design. And that's just a simplified design reference, but that's the kind of things that you ask the planning board to look at when they look at every application relative to how it's structured, where the runoff is, how we collect that water and slow it down, all kinds of things that we work with on a regular basis with all the applicants to make sure that we minimize that issue. I don't know if that helps, Roy, but
Does the slope I'm not talking about,
it doesn't stop anything.
but does it add phosphorus? Does the slope itself add phosphorus?
It could.
It could.
Trees and soil and the big issue we keep looking at is what you bring in. What are you bringing in? And every bit of material you bring in has got some form of phosphorus in it, whether it's crushed stone, gravel, rocks, whatever. It's got a level of phosphorus in it. So that's what we're trying to manage is minimize that. The planning boards are cut off a criteria is 25 cubic yards. That's all about what you're bringing in and taking away relative to the phosphorus potential.
Bill?
Yep.
Clarification, as I mentioned, 15% slope is the maximum slope that serves as a buffer. And what a buffer does, when water runs through it or flows through it over land, if it's gentle enough slope, it's going at a slower speed. It doesn't concentrate in little channels and cause more erosion, but also it goes slow enough in sheet flow, ideally, so that it can infiltrate into the soils on the slope without just running down at high speed, or the vegetation on the slope, the roots can take up the phosphorus that's in the runoff. If you have a 100-foot buffer at the top of that is, let's say, 10% slope, or maybe even better, a 7% slope, that actually functions as an effective buffer. And there's calculations depending on the soil type, the slope, and in the dimensions. How is it 100 feet deep, 50 feet deep? You can come up with what's called the treatment factor, which you can then calculate what the anticipated uptake of the phosphorus in that 100-foot buffer on a gentler slope. So you're reducing the phosphorus that's getting to the steep slope before it gets there. It's being infiltrated and taken up. So it's like a pre-treat. You're pre-treating the runoff before it goes down the slide there. I just also want to share with Rick, it's like, and Wendy, you'll attest to this. I've been really impressed with the planning board here. The credentials of the people on the planning board. It's been a pleasure working with them. But I just also want to say is that it's unfortunate, and I'm not making an excuse. I was unable to make the May 27th planning board meeting, which I would have definitely had been at which I think there was the last meeting, this planning board discussed this matter and maybe could have contributed more. I was at the April 22nd site visit and planning board. Friday, well, our annual budget meeting was Thursday the 21st. That was a holiday weekend. I received notice of the planning board meeting on the 27th on Friday afternoon and gone for the weekend by that time. And then Wednesday night, I was at the Winthrop Fire Department when they were having a planning board meeting because we have an EPA grant and I had the attorney Mary Dennison there. I was putting on a workshop for road association formations and I just had too many other things in the air that night to be able to make the meeting. And so that was an opportunity missed to maybe contribute more to the discussion with the board before we got to this point. That's all I'm getting at. So
Thank you, Bill. Aaron, then Wendy, you want to come up?
I'm just going to make kind of my end comment here for the public period, is that I have faith in the planning board. I watch all their meetings or, and if able, attend, but I see the due diligence that they do with every applicant, and I do have faith that they would be able, I don't think this would become too complicated of an issue. So that, my position would be to adopt this, or if more time is needed to clarify, but I do think it's important work that they're doing.
Thank you. And Wendy, we're going to let you, and then we're going to close the public comment because we've beaten this thing pretty good tonight. So go ahead.
So I think that, Rick, who known for decades and is a great supporter of lakes, when he says they're trying to do something that makes sense, we're trying to say that it would make more sense if instead of drawing the back of the resource protection district within this 250 shoreline zone, instead of drawing it along the top of the slope, to draw that line 100 feet back from it. The intent that the planning board says, the intent is to not allow activities or a house. It's not clear to me what that setback means, but let's say that it means what is the most protective for the lake. 100 feet back from the top of the steep slope, one cannot cut trees, build a house, do anything. But have that be the back of the resource protection zone instead of saying resource protection zone ends at the top of the slope. Then you've got district. Then you've got another district called something else that goes beyond that for 100 feet, where you have all these do's and don'ts in it. It's just another layer. We can achieve the same thing that the planning board, I think, is working on, is using that technology to define where's the top of the steep slope, or whatever the characteristic is that puts it in resource protection, and go 100 feet beyond that and say that's the end of the resource protection zone. And then it's clear to a property owner, you have to do your activities beyond that line. Instead of saying, well, you've got resource protection zone to this line, and there are rules for that. And then there's another 100 foot where there are different rules for that. And then there's more. It's just a more secure and easier way to do it would be to use this technology to define where the top of the steep slope is, and then move the resource protection line 100 feet beyond that, instead of calling it like a setback from a new district with a setback from a resource protection district that has just been changed from 250 feet down to something else. I mean, just if the proposal was to change the resource protection district from a solid 250, no matter what, to 100 feet back from the limiting factor, such as the steep slope, it would be much clearer, and it would maintain more protection for the lake. It would be easier for the property owner and the code enforcement officer, and it wouldn't be that far off from what the planning board is suggesting. So I think the planning
Thank you.
board is suggesting something that, if you change it a bit, would make sense to everyone.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to wrap this up with, because I've been very quiet with this, but I've also I've been lost in some of this. So, and I do appreciate the planning board and all that they do, and being a lifetime member here of the town, and I respect the lakes. I love the technology, Greg. I think it's great. I really think we should incorporate this. I like where you guys are going with this. I just trying to understand it. And I don't have for me, I would like to table this to, I'm not saying you guys haven't done good work, but I personally think I need to look at this a little bit more of understanding what you're proposing, because I feel you guys are saying one thing and then the other folks are saying something else. It almost seems like they're melding into something else. And I feel as though when you're making a proposal of 100 feet back from the top of the high point, it just seems like, yeah, instead of a straight line, which I think is trying to understand that black line is the existing resource protection. If we're just going to draw that 100 foot from the red line, the inner red line, that's just going to follow the topography, right? And then you're still gaining, maybe somebody may gain 10 feet, somebody may lose 20 feet. I don't know, but I don't know enough by just taking, we spent this probably for an hour and a half. We've been discussing this, but I'm getting a lot of information on this right now, and after reading it, didn't make a whole lot of sense other than some of the presentations tonight. So we're going to close the public discussion right now. I'm not really in favor either way on this thing right now, and just kind of standing. I think I would like to have some more data on it, and I hate to beat it down, but I personally don't want to put anything on it yet. But let's close the public discussion at 7:33, and we'll move on to items 120.
I will make that motion to table this item. I would probably direct the planning board to meet with the Cobussy watershed and maybe come up with some compromise that does reflect the topical information, and not just draw a huge blanket line, but maybe can represent that 100-foot, maybe make it a 200-foot, I don't know.
Yeah.
Compromise. I think that would be the best. That's my motion.
I second that.
Discussion?
Yes, it can be discussion. Go ahead.
I don't truly like the verbiage, Aaron, that directs the planning board to do something. Like Bill said, he would have made the meeting. And if the planning board schedules another discussion, all we have to do is make sure Bill can be there. It's really not, I'm not even sure it's legal for us to tell the planning board what they have to do. So we need to be careful about that verbiage.
Make it a recommendation.
Okay, and I second that motion.
Yep.
Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Can we get, the only thing I would say, I agree with the motion. Can we get some clarification maybe from Rick or the planning board of what is the difference between the shoreline zoning that the planning board's talking about extending? What are the different uses? What does that allow versus what does resource protection, extending the resource protection another 100 feet, what does that allow? What is the comparison between the two? Because we're talking about essentially the same.
Well, that's what I think. That would like that. I see you guys have here, and I'm not putting it down in the presentation, but if I could see what's existing, what it looked like, what you guys, the proposal, what it's going to look like, so I can see a comparison of what we're dealing with here. That's where I'm.
As I understand it, what Wendy's talking about as far as extending the 100-foot set, extended resource protection 100 feet back from the top of slope is exactly the same area of land that extending 100-foot shoreland zone back from the top of slope. What is the difference between a shoreland zone and resource protection? That's really what I'd like to see.
Hold on.
Chairman?
I'm going to need you to come. If anybody's going to speak, you need to come to the podium, please, because they can't hear you online. And actually, probably most people back there can't hear, because I've sat out there before. It's really tough to even hear when you're projecting this way. Go ahead, Rick.
Tonight, we have gone from leaving the resource protection zone as it is, to discussion about the top of the slope and a 100-foot setback. That's where we're at. That's my opinion. That's where we're at. Real simple. If you draw a line at the top of that slope,
Yep.
that's resource protection.
Okay.
And you move back 100 feet, you can't build within that 100 feet, period. And that's what I hear Wendy proposing. That's what I hear Bill excuse me. You did. And
So what's
our
the,
intent tonight is to do exactly that, is
so what's the
resource
difference
protection.
in the use of the land? Are there any uses that are allowed in one and not allowed in the other?
I mean, it is, you're now going back to our shoreland zoning ordinance, and all the details are in there, is what you're asking.
Okay.
But what we're talking about basically is zones. We're talking about resource protection zone, which is a sloped area,
Yep.
20% or more, is that correct? 20% or more slope. That's resource protection. I don't think we have any disagreement on that.
No.
And we all agree on setting back 100 feet before you consider anything relative to shoreland zoning. I think we all agree on that. So I'm not sure what more you want us to do.
Please come to the
You
podium.
just want,
Yeah, I guess that's where I was
Now,
at.
relative to, let me talk about his case. He's representing a client,
Okay.
okay? And he's been working with us for several weeks now. We walked the property. There's no question in my mind on that particular property, we're going to have to go, as we've designed tonight, you're either tabling or approving, is a 100-foot setback, and then you look at building, period. And then from there, the board considers what is that? Now, we've already asked those folks for a plot plan and drawings of what it is they want to put there. We haven't seen them yet. Dawn, is that correct? We haven't seen them yet?
Correct.
Correct. So we haven't seen them yet. So there's two pieces to this. There's what we're trying to do tonight relative to shoreline zone, not spot zoning, but starting the process of looking at shoreline zone and resource protection. I don't think they agree with the 100-foot setback. Now, if that's the reason why they're debating it tonight, I don't know. But we believe, the board believes, that we want the 100-foot setback from the resource protection zone. And the rules from there apply as you would for shoreline zone.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, I don't know how much more detail we can give you as to what it is you're looking for. Now, if we need to give you a map that shows the lines on it, which Greg attempted to do, we'll do that.
Yeah,
But-
well, I guess right now, from what I'm listening, and we're out of the public part of it right now. Right now, we have a motion on the table, we have a second, and I'd like to kind of just move on from that. If this fails, then we can get back into something. But I appreciate it. What I'm saying right now is based on what I have before me is confusing, and I'd like to table this tonight. He made that motion tonight. I seconded it, and I'd like to. We're done with the public.
Did I
part of
answer
it
Roy's
tonight.
question?
I think you must have at this point, but
Did I?
we're going to come back and talk about it another time because I'm going to take a vote. So
So I just want to make sure I got the motion correct.
Sure.
Let me clarify. So the motion is to table the official zoning map as proposed and recommend for the planning board to meet with the Cobussy Watershed District on possible compromises.
yeah, because I'm getting conflicting, somebody's saying one thing and somebody else saying the other. Almost to me, it's like it's the same thing. So, and I'm confused as heck because they seem like they're opposing it and you guys are presenting it. And I I value you guys' opinion on this. And I feel like there's got to be somewhere you guys can say, yeah, we agree on this. So I'd like you guys to kind of visit this again and come back to us because thank you. But I do appreciate all you guys. I do. I really do. So let's take a vote to table this. So all in favor?
It's the table.
Yep.
I'm good.
All present are in table. Yes, go ahead, Rick.
I try to herd this cat. What I hear you saying is you want us the planning board to get with Cobussy Watershed and talk about what the verbiage is, because it sounds like we agree,
Yes.
but what the verbiage is. Now, that said, I'm also hearing that you want to see some lines on a map
I would
for
like
your
to see,
purposes.
I would like to see some lines on there because I like the technology and I think it's nothing but it's going to help us as we move forward in some of the zoning. So I think it's,
Greg can help us with that.
I think Greg presented that very well and I think I'm all in favor.
Anything I'm missing?
Uh-huh. No, I
Anything
think
I'm missing?
you're right on. So thank you. And I appreciate you guys. So
You know where to find us too if you have clarifying questions.
yeah.
You'd have to go back up to the mic.
So I think one of the things that we're missing here is the public's lack of understanding of what this is going to mean. So no one knows what this is. There's only a few people here that understand what this is meaning. I do, yeah. But the public, from what the public was given in the agenda to what it is now is completely different. And
That's why we're tabling it.
I think it's really, yeah, but for sure. And
Well, they'll have an opportunity to discuss it when they meet at the planning board.
right, so I would see, right, so
They watch our meetings.
you're having the Cobussy Watershed District meet with the planning board, but other people should be in that meeting
Well, that
too.
is a
That will be a
That's gonna be
public
Okay,
meeting.
all right, that's what I.
And it will be posted and
Okay.
everybody will have an opportunity to come and
Good.
say their piece.
And so, but I
Yeah,
think
I'm sorry.
Mark Arsenault would be a good resource to have there too.
No, I don't disagree. And I think you can have the planner and the code enforcement officer. And I do agree that, code enforcement is very important in this town as we're going to try to protect our resources that we have. So thank you, guys. Let's move on.
Make it quick.
Okay, go ahead, Andy, real
All
quick.
right,
It's been
so
really
real
loose
quick.
tonight.
As mentioned on the agenda, it's only, talks about the lots that are going to be immediately affected. And I've heard from planning board members that this is sort of a pilot program. Now, that's not on the agenda. Okay, so as you said, the public really doesn't know what's going on here. I don't think anything intentional. All right, I just think this is a much bigger deal than just these 6 lots, and the public needs to know that.
All right, so we're done with that now. Let's move on to items 121, public hearing with zoning ordinance amendments. It's going to be a public hearing. I'm going to open this discussion up at 7:43. Yeah, Don, can you take us through what we're talking about here, please?
Sure can.
Thank you.
So this change, it came about as a result of state mandate LD 427 and an effort to remove barriers to allow more housing to be created. The state has indicated that in growth areas, as designated by each town as part of their comprehensive plan, the town can require no more than 1 parking space per dwelling unit in the growth area. They also have reference to multifamily dwellings, but we already meet that requirement. So in order to meet the requirement of the state, what the planning board is proposing is that with the growth area, we currently require 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. We will then amend the ordinance, or the council will amend the ordinance so that only 1 parking space per dwelling unit is required in the growth area.
Thank you,
So
Don.
it is a mandated change.
Thank you. You're gonna
And
do
again,
all of it,
they,
Don? Do you want to go through all of it, Don? Because it's all
sure.
all of them.
Sure,
are
yeah.
part of the public hearing, please.
Sure, so that's the public, that's the parking provision. There's another amendment proposed. This was not something that was part of the state legislation. It was just discovered in different, projects reviewing the ordinance. It seems to be an oversight that the Route 202 development piece of the zoning ordinance, it referenced properties on Route 202 in the industrial district, and as a result of some map amendments, there are no parcels that are currently industrially zoned that face Route 202. So the proposed amendment is to reference all property on 202. So the development on 202, regardless of the zone, fronting, accessing on Route 202, and really the section is about access management, safety, keeping the traffic flowing through Winthrop. That's pretty much what the provision already is hoping to achieve. But in this instance, it's just hopefully what I believe is a correction so that it applies to 202. And I did check with the previous planning board chair, and he felt that that was the intention when that was changed. So regardless, it's good planning to apply this to Long Route 202. So that is the recommendation, is that the council adopt that provision. Moving along to the next. This is going back to a state mandate. The state is requiring that towns allow chickens in all districts And we don't allow them currently in the village district. So this would amend the ordinance, table 2, which is uses where they're permitted, that poultry keeping would be allowed with planning board approval in the village, and excludes the ability to keep roosters. And then we just changed some definitions to make them consistent, but ultimately the result of the language is that people could go to the planning board, ask to have chickens in the village. And again, just to highlight, no roosters allowed. And then the last change is regarding the solar ordinance. And I will let Greg speak to that because Greg generously took his time to propose the amendments, and he wrote it initially, so he's very technically versed in that. So there are multiple changes to that hopefully address the intent of the moratorium itself. So the first three are pretty simple.
Okay, so the solar ordinance is its own separate item, so we'll get to that here in a second.
That's a separate. Yeah, I'd like to stay.
And in fact, as I'm looking at this, I mean, we made this all one item, but if the council wants, we could break out these 3 things that Don just talked about individually, and you could take individual votes on those if that's your pleasure. Oh, yeah, yes, yeah, you still engage in that. I was just.
Sure.
No, we're going to talk about that. That's part of a public hearing. That's going to be the next item.
Okay. So any discussion? Go ahead, Roy.
Some clarification on number 2. The standards of this section apply to all property, and that a vegetative buffer is required to be established if none is present.
Correct.
So this is like with businesses and all?
Correct.
It's not new.
Why would a person locate an ice cream parlor on Route 202 or a restaurant and have to plant a vegetative buffer in between their customers and the,
That sounds completely absurd to me. Is this something that's normal?
absurd would be a good word.
I mean,
Part of it is
any industrial or commercial area in any community, the whole intent of being on 202 is you want to be seen. You want to have the visibility to the traffic.
if I can clarify, it's not a visual buffer. So there is some discretion, at the board level, but the intent is that there is vegetation up front, and part of it's, for an aesthetic benefit, but it's not like we're saying, put a hedge of trees, no one can see your property. It's just basically a vegetation. It could be grass, shrubs, some type of vegetation between the right of way and the property, the business itself.
So I just want to clarify. So you're talking like, let's take, just because it's kind of comes to mind, Caprara's, C. Caprara, up there at the top of the hill. They have, it's paved right to 202. You want a vegetative buffer? I mean, the idea is to put a vegetative buffer along that entire parking lot, or?
Actually, so what it is that it's access management is really what this is about, more than it is about vegetation from, visually pleasing status. So if you are trying to keep traffic moving on 202, one, you have to work with the MDOT for a driveway permit, and they are going to require curb cuts, limiting curb cuts. So there's an existing condition, and if they were to make a major change on that property and require an MDOT permit, the MDOT would actually be the one that would speak with them about potentially tightening up some of the curb cuts, reducing curb cuts, the width of them. And what you're trying to do is manage the turning movements on 202, people entering the property, exiting the property. And so really part of that intent of that, Rory, is so if you're going to manage the curb cuts, you're going to have some vegetation in there instead of having a whole paved area, which people would assume might be an entrance or exit. And again, it depends on the state standards for the driveway design, but there would be vegetation involved as well, but not a visual buffer.
One last question. Are we talking about going back and making, I read this here as a vegetative buffer is required and to be established if none is present. Are we talking about
Correct.
going and retroactively requiring people to do this?
If someone comes in with a project that requires planning board review, as part of that, that is something that they would look at. So usually when someone's coming in with a project that triggers planning board review, it's going to be pretty substantial. And usually there will be improvements that would already incorporate that. And that's not to say that's the rule. But no, it's not just retroactively going down 202 to existing properties and requiring this. It's if it's triggered to go to the planning board as part of the review, this would be an element that they would look at.
Andy?
Yeah, I think every time you put another condition on the development of business, you discourage the development of business. Okay, and I think if you're going to do this, first of all, the state regulates curb cuts and entrances and exit on 202. We don't really have to do that. The state already does it for us. Okay, and I think that if you do this, it's unnecessary, but we should be very clear that the vegetative buffer may not obstruct the view of the highway for exit and entrance, and may not obstruct the view of the business on the property.
Thank you, Andy. Something?
I was just wondering if maybe the verbiage might be more of the issue. If what you're trying to achieve is to delineate between where the access points are versus, landscaping with the consideration of adding vegetative buffer with the planning board review, like that's something that could be done on a case-by-case basis within the planning board, to have the planning board saying, we may require it.
If it's automatic,
Right.
major project, it would likely be.
If I could
Yes.
clarify that this is
Yeah, go
actually an
ahead.
existing standard, and all the board did was there currently is required a 25-foot buffer, and we added the word vegetative. So it's currently a standard, it's just vague, 25-foot buffer, which is undefined.
Yeah, which I think also kind of going off from the edge of the road, there's also an easement, I think, right? That we would have for maybe drainage. And you could consider grass being vegetative. And then I think of businesses along there like Stevenson's Farm Stand popped up, I guess not that long, I guess like 20 years ago. But I think about them and having at least 25 feet before they can put in that. So could be low, but for going forward, those are just considerations. I mean, you might be cutting down even more things, but yeah, just the 25 feet of vegetative buffer kind of popped out to me too. And taking in consideration that easement, I mean, are you going just from the edge of the road? And then how much of an easement is there? Is there like 8 feet? Or is it going back from that? I mean, we just talked about setbacks on the last topic. I don't want to go down that route really, but.
Yeah, we want to capitalize on that because that was part of my question. Where's the 25-foot buffer start? Does it start right from where the state owns, or does it start from the shoulder? Where does it start?
It starts from the edge of the right-of-way, not the travel way. And right-of-ways vary in width. So on 202, it could be 50 feet, 100 feet. I don't know in what locations the width is. But so it always starts from the front of the property owner's land, which is the edge of the right-of-way. And I think the
25 additional.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because maybe 25 feet was too much.
Thinking of my lot in Monmouth, they'd be in my front door.
Yeah.
If I would lose my entire parking lot out there. If I had to put a 25-foot vegetative buffer, I'd be able to barely drive a vehicle along the front of.
Just look what you could mow.
I know in East Winthrop on the south side at the intersection of the Island Park Road, it's 30 feet or so. So then if you add another 25 feet, and the 30 feet is all grass already. So. Yeah.
There's something existing.
Yep.
I think they're talking about moving forward. So any other projects coming forward?
As long as we're not talking about retroactive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can still support it. It's just
Okay.
one more complication to a business.
All right, thank you.
It's the vegetative buffer.
Any other discussion on
Go
over
to
these?
the next one.
Okay, we're going to talk about all three of these items.
Yep.
Okay, please.
So the next one regarding the domesticated birds. My
Yep.
only question was it produces, again, setbacks 50 feet away from property lines. And then it says except where a property line abuts a public way, but it doesn't identify a certain setback. So can chickens come right up against a public way? Like a road? And 100 feet away from any existing abutting residences?
That's how I read this currently, and this is currently in the ordinance. So if there are concerns, you may want to direct the board to make amendments, but only the 50 feet is currently for keeping of livestock, which is rabbits, horses, cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs, and we're adding or poultry. So if there are
Yeah.
concerns about some of these things, for instance, the 25-foot buffer or, this 100-foot, that may be something you want to look at. It's not, we're not proposing any changes to that, but it's flagging it. I can see by your eyes that maybe we want to revisit this.
Maybe just, I don't even know if you would even take that out because it says they'll be located 50 feet away from property lines, but then except where a property line abuts a public way.
Mhm.
So I don't understand the purpose of that. If you could just take that out, it's 50 feet away from property lines, but
One
Abutting a
other
public
problem is
way.
that a chicken
But-
pen, a fenced-in chicken area would amount to a structure or a pen or with a cover over it, a cage cover over it, large chicken cage would be a structure and subject to setbacks. So that in and of itself would be contrary to setback rules in any given district. There's no such thing as a zero setback. It's not a fence, it's a structure.
it's the only thing.
And that's all comes before you guys at the planning board, correct, Don? So it's not like it's an automatic. It has to be posed and it has to be approved.
Correct, in the village.
Right, that's what I mean.
At the table here, poultry keeping, it would be permitted by right in the industrial and in the rural districts. But in the general residential, limited commercial, general commercial, and village, those would all go to the planning board if you wanted to have chickens. In the standard, the performance standards are what you were looking at regarding setbacks. That would apply in all districts.
Okay, thank you.
And is there a limit on how many chickens you can have?
Not currently.
Okay.
Can you have an emu?
That's not a domesticated bird.
Oh, okay.
So, and lest anyone be confused, it's like, why is the town of Winthrop considering this? It's because the state actually passed a law that requires towns to allow chickens
Thank you
in
for
all
clarification.
districts, which also, for what it's worth, the Maine Municipal Association opposed because it's trampling all over home rule authority.
Constitution.
Well, that was for food rights, but this was sort of a spin-off of that.
Okay. All right. We talked, we could, good about talking about the number one, we clarified and we're all good with that one. The First Amendment she discussed. I know we kind of went backwards. Oh, no, we went that way. I know, I guess we're fine. It's been a long night.
Number one's mandatory, correct?
Yeah. Yep. I'm good with that. So, yeah, we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you. Keep me on track here. So, yep, 8:00, closing the public hearing. Now it's item 122, consideration of amendments of the zoning board ordinance. In discussion.
Yeah. And like I said, if you guys want to take these up individually, we can definitely do that.
It's a great idea.
Good with 1 and 3.
Okay, let's do them individually then. Let's do with number one.
Make a motion to adopt Article 412.g off-street parking and loading as presented by the planning.
I second. Any other discussion? All in favor? 4, 2, and opposed? He's opposed. Motion passes and carries, so we'll move on to the second, number 2, amendment, Article 413.2, Route 202 development.
Table that.
Existing.
Well, that should be a motion. Right.
All that this does is adds in, there's all development shall maintain a 25-foot buffer along Route 202, except for the driveway or access point is what's existing. This amendment would add in shall establish and maintain a 25-foot in the added vegetation buffer.
That's,
Not doing.
we're gonna make a motion or not?
And they'll,
Yeah.
you would want to know where to go with this, right? If we voted that down, potentially.
Yeah, as is, leave it as is.
Yeah.
It's a driver to change it.
Is there state law or?
No.
It's kind of
It's
like I said,
undefined.
State regulates
No, it
entrance.
was broad.
Yeah.
It was just broad. That's. It sounds like they do that anyways.
Maintain one. Pushing one. Because now it sounds like it would be directing.
I'm gonna looking for a motion on items 2. So if we want, it's not gonna get a motion, then it goes nowhere. Then let it fail, right? So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, please.
I just want to note that it seems like there's, people have different thoughts about whether the buffer should be vegetative or not. But really, the purpose of bringing this to you is because this currently doesn't apply anywhere unless it's changed so that it applies to Route 202. That was the big piece.
You're saying right now it doesn't apply anywhere?
Correct, and I believe it was an oversight when there were map changes.
I don't like
Okay with
this.
that.
I don't like the whole thing.
I just being more and more and more restrictive of stuff. I'm not for it. Doesn't the state already have
They do.
guidelines for 202?
They do.
Dawn?
If you create trips, if you create new trips, additional trips of 100 or more, you're required to go to the state to get a driveway permit. Or if you have a significant change of use, but there are instances that you would not be required to do, a full-blown traffic permit, in which case there may or may not be improvements that would be required.
Yes, we are
Um,
at the council level.
right, so I guess if the language, I think is some of the issue that I'm having a hard time with, would be maybe something along the lines of all development shall, on 202, the planning board should make the consideration that there be a 20-foot vegetative buffer or something like that versus just directing it blanketly. Is this something that the planning board would be dealing with anyways, Don?
Well, currently, like I said, won't come before the planning board because it doesn't apply anywhere. But if the council said, yeah, the intention is for access manager on 202 and either, amends it and applies it to there or leaves it as it is, the planning board's going to have to grapple with the current language as a 25-foot buffer. So it would be helpful if the council would say what that is.
I
think
Rick,
we need
do
to leave the planning board a little more flexible than,
Do we currently have an issue with access management on 202?
The planning board is currently looking at a property on Royal Street at the intersection of 202, which is a high crash area, and there's been fatalities. And in that instance,
Doesn't the state dictate where the interest permit is?
Yeah,
So in that instance, the trips generated do not exceed the 100 trip threshold, so they're not required to get a full driveway permit. So the state is limited in what they can ask for to make that intersection more safe. And locally, we don't have anything. So unless this applies.
So we're changing rules based on one applicant?
No, you just asked for an example is why I was mentioning
Yeah.
that.
I think any highway entrance, the state has a 300-foot sight line. If you don't have that, you don't get to enter the highway.
Okay, looks like we have a
I
motion.
don't like this whole
Motion
thing.
to table number 2. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
It's the best deal I'm going to get. I'll take it.
Okay. Items are on the same thing. We're talking about number 3, amendment to Article 311, Table 2, to allow the planning board a conditional use permit within the village district for the keeping of female domesticated birds raised for meat or egg production, excluding fully mature male chickens.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All are in favor. All right. Item 4 on that, we're going to take when we talk about the solar, so. Yes, we are. Items 123, public hearing amendment to the solar energy generating systems ordinance. I'm going to open up the public discussion at 8:07. Hello, Greg, thank you. Getting a lot of exposure up there, pal.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Happy to
Greg
have you
Stewart,
here.
here being a pain again.
Oh, you're absolutely.
So the way to
good.
introduce this item in my mind is probably the best way is last time I was here a couple of months ago, or maybe 3 or 4 months ago, the council brought up a number of issues. So I'm going to say what we did with those issues in the ordinance and the changes we made.
Thank you.
So that would hopefully kind of walk you down the road. And again, this is based on my notes, so I could have gotten something wrong. So sorry if I did, but so there were 4 items that were brought up that were already in the ordinance. So I wanted to make sure everybody was clear, so how the money was held, that's currently in the ordinance and the town holds the money so that they understand for rehab the site after they've left. Solar panels are impervious. So the percent impervious for what zone they're in does apply. So it does have to get calculated. They have to share that with us. The fire chief is involved. They must sign off on every single application. They must review all the plans. That's a requirement. Shoreland and resource protection does apply. They still have the same setbacks from wetlands and streams. These are considered structures. So that does all count. Now, some questions that required changes to the ordinance. So develop a detailed electrical plan so that we have them. And we went round and round as the planning board with that one and said they have to submit detailed plans to the state, and we're not electrical experts. So what we are requiring them is to submit a full set of plans to the town for the record. So again, we're not requiring them to do anything extra except to making sure they supply those to the town when they apply. So a second one was a copy of the lease. We added that to the ordinance requirement for the lease agreement, again, to be in the package submitted to the town. So we have a copy of that. Monitoring plan for site construction. So we added elements for the project start, and this actually kind of goes into the penalty phase, which was sort of another part of the question. So what we're requiring applicants to do is to give us a phased construction approach to tell us when you're going to start, when you're going to put the panels in, when you're going to be finished, when you're going to vegetate, when you're going to fence, kind of a whole plan. Also in the ordinance, we added, as the board, we said some of these we approved and then they might sit for 2 or even 3 years. We said, no, we added a 12-month provision. If at 12 months they haven't had a substantial start based on the town definition, which is 30%, if they haven't had that, they have to come back to the planning board to get reapproved. So that was our requirement, is that they cannot get just a blanket sign off pass through to get step the other one. So that kind of addressed the penalties. I did talk to Mark about the way the town actually reviews those. They are reviewed like structures. So a standard size solar farm may be limited to, may have a number of structures. We might get $4,000 or $5,000 in review. So he felt like that was adequate to cover the cost of him inspecting all of those panels, that there really wasn't an additional fee that was needed, because each one of those panels is reviewed like a structure. So they have to pay building permit fees associated with that, like it's a whole set of structures. So I felt like that was reasonable. The last one was the board seemed to have the board seemed to have the understanding that the council was asking us to limit the number of solar. So since we specifically limit the size of each facility, we looked at limiting them based on kilowatt production, power generation. The problem being, we don't know what the future of energy production is going to be. They might come out with a solar panel that's the size of a phone and be able to produce crazy amounts of power. So we didn't want to limit it on power. What we limited on number. Currently, the town has 12 approved permits. We capped it. We suggested and put that in our ordinance that we capped it at 10. And the reason for that is we know that there's 2 projects that aren't moving forward. So that basically means that where we're at is the limit. We thought that was in the spirit of what the board was asking. The planning board kind of agreed to that. So, and again, we just got an email from Anthony, so I'll address that one. So that was kind of my list. We had an email from Anthony. So in our requirements, we require a vegetated buffer. That's a 50-foot vegetated buffer that requires them to be native evergreen plants. So that addresses the email that says that's what we're requiring, and they have to have a natural height, so they can't plant some mini fern shrub thing that's 3 feet long. So it has to have a normal mature height of 25 feet. So it can't be something that only grows to 5 feet tall. So it has to be 25 feet or taller. And they're allowed to prune above 25 feet, but they're not allowed to touch anything below 25 feet. We're very clear in the ordinance, and we're very clear when we talk to the applicants. They're not allowed to touch anything. So vegetated is vegetated. So everything will be natural. The whole idea is that we can get some evergreens to start growing in that area.
Can I jump in real quick there?
Yep.
With that, something that may not make it or die.
Yep.
Or is it going to be required to replace that to
Yep,
make sure
it
in there?
follows, well, it follows, all we said is we follow the shoreland zone replantings.
Perfect.
So this town
Yep.
already has an ordinance.
Yep.
I think it's 80% has to survive 1 year, something like that.
Yep.
So they have to
Okay.
follow that same
Perfect.
planting plan.
Great. Thank you.
So,
Okay.
Andy?
Yeah, I got 2 things, Craig.
yep.
First, deciding that the panels are impervious area flies in the face of the DEP,
We understand.
okay?
Yep, but that's
And,
actually incorrect in their assumption that there's no change. And what we've seen is there's 2 recent studies that talks about the change in temperature of the water coming off. So now you're seeing water that's superheated. If we get a thunder shower, let's say, and the sun is still out, the panels are hot, water's coming off. And what that does is it essentially kills the grass and it starts to create wash lines, just like a roof would. So the panel themselves are impervious cover. So that's
So-
what we were saying.
I think that's going to create a situation where you're going to need so much land that it's going to be almost impossible to put up a field.
Well, when you add in the vegetated buffer, the fence requirement, and the setbacks from wetlands and other water
Yeah.
bodies, it's probably that you're really not that far off. We did some rough numbers. The panels can't be, if they're going to be rotating 2-directional panels, they really need to have almost double their size in a variable space. So just the solar panel field itself has to be 50%, can be at most 50% impervious. When you add in the vegetated buffer and the distance from the fence, you're really talking, you're already up to about 75%. So to get to 80%, vegetated or 20% impervious, it's really not that hard. So I
Okay.
really don't think it's unrealistic. We did some numbers and we felt pretty good about those numbers. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think, and also we do limit the size. So we are not allowing, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. They are limited in size. The actual acreage that they can cover is capped.
5 or 6 acres, I think you have.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, and so the next one real quick was, don't get old, you forget what you just thought of. The year to start thing, we already have that in our ordinance. Okay, I mean, I know the one up on 202, I felt like that sort of instigated this after 2 years. Now we're having yet another review of the solar ordinance. They were way behind a year to start. I looked at it, I think Aaron looked at it.
But they can be granted an extension from the code officer. We're disallowing that. We're saying you have to come back.
They
to
were
the planning
granted an
board.
extension?
I don't know.
I don't think they
They
were.
can be. They can be. We're changing the ordinance so that they can't be
Well,
because these projects are unique. And we said, we want you to come back
I
to the
don't,
planning.
I don't want to be argumentative, but they weren't granted any kind of an extension, so we have an enforcement issue.
He's just saying it can be. It's
That-
possible, right?
Yeah, it's possible. And all we're saying is in the ordinance, we're changing that.
Right.
So I'm just addressing the ordinance. I'm not going to compliance.
So you're saying if they're not granted an extension,
If they're not granted an extension, they really would have to come back and resubmit.
then
But
they
that's
but they still can be granted an extension
even from us.
Yeah.
We're saying, but you have to come back and represent to the planning
Correct.
board.
after a
is
year,
what
no
we're
matter
saying.
what.
Correct.
Yeah.
like
After
it.
1 year, if you haven't substantially started, you have to come back to us. And that's also gives us time if we do have another moratorium, if we have another change, if the technology's changed and we need to address things in the
Evaluate it.
ordinance, we can address that.
Oh, great God forbid we have to have another moratorium.
Well, I hope not.
Roy?
I hope this is it, but
Thank you, Greg.
Go ahead, Roy.
One question, you addressed one of my questions already, the impervious area. You're saying we are tightening up that beyond DEP's regulations.
well, what we're doing is calling them a structure. We're calling an apple. That's all we're doing.
Okay, I like it.
That's all we're doing.
The other thing is the vegetative barrier. And this was a question I had. You and I talked regarding the tilling of the vegetated area and the tilling of the entire
Field.
that was being.
Please don't use the 202 project as an example. They removed the vegetated buffer, and that's why we have a work plan to address that. They remove the vegetated buffer and they have to then replant. Underneath our policy, we don't want them to do that. The way the
That's what I
ordinance is written, we want them to keep the vegetated buffer and just plant trees. So that example is a compliance issue. But we weren't really clear. Now the ordinance is pretty clear because we're going to get the step-by-step process of how they're going to do that.
Okay. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Greg.
I think you guys, go ahead.
One other, how about, is there any sort of, distance from the right of way? Because that right of way, I'm going to use that as example again, the 202 project.
Yep.
That right of way right there is 100 foot from the center line. So like where they hauled all of their fill in, where that,
The
where
the vegetated
zone.
buffer must be on their property, period. And it is on the plans. I went
How
back,
about
and reviewed 202. It is on their plans. Unfortunately, in that case, they removed the entire vegetated buffer and they have to go back and put it in place. So they're going to replant it instead of leaving it and adding trees to it.
And does that vegetative buffer, like on that particular project, for example, is that to the roadway in there, to the left-hand side of the roadway where they filled all that in?
You mean the
They're closer
driveway?
Than 100 foot to the center line of the road.
My understanding is that 202 project, they had to go get a survey and get the state right away to figure out where their property line is. Their vegetated buffer on our ordinance has to be inside their property. So the roadway buffer doesn't count. They can't count
Do we know
that.
if that actually happened? The survey?
I saw orange stakes out there and I believe Mark said they surveyed it. So I'm assuming that they did what they needed to do and gave it to Mark. I'm assuming that, but again, if that's off and somebody wants to complain and DOT wants to complain, they could go resurvey it and say you're wrong. Again, they still have to add the vegetated buffer in anyways.
Yeah.
So that's something they have to plant.
Thank you. Greg and everybody in the planning board, and Dawn, everybody's putting their hard work into this. I only have one suggestion. And it's just Jim Steele's suggestion. The total number of fields that we allow here, mine would just say 6. And I know we have 10. I would just say 6. And as the other phase out, we just don't add them until they get down below 6. And then we can add another one. But I like 6 because it's really not going to, it's going to hopefully mitigate a lot of this. And I'd like to keep our green space green and not put all these solar panels in, but that's just me talking in this public hearing. But I leave it up to everybody else here or anybody else in the audience that would like to discuss it. So, but I think you guys have done miles where we were. I was here when we first put it to place, and because it was all brand new to me and all this stuff, process was new. But as we've learned and progressed, and I think you had put some provisions in as we need to revisit it as technology does change, that we can adapt and correct ourselves if need be. So one way or the other. So.
Yeah, and again, the number was, we kicked it around the planning board, and that's what we landed
No, I
on.
think that's a good number too, but
But-
in my mind, when I had it, when we first discussed it, I was thinking 6 is a heck of a good number because I just really kind of just slows this way down, and you guys won't have to deal with this for a little while because you got 25 years and who knows where I'll be. The length of those panels. But so that's my only suggestion. If we don't have any other public discussion, I'm going to close the public discussion at 8:22. Thank you. All right, items 124, consideration of amendments of the solar energy generating systems ordinance.
I'll move to approve the amendments to the solar energy generating systems ordinance. Did you want it? How did everyone feel about 10?
Support 6.
Any insight? 6?
Good.
Make one change to limit it to 6.
Yes, I thought it would be.
So eliminating the 6 means
6 totals, max.
So there's currently, there were,
10,
yep, 10.
and then,
And so 10 will go in place.
Yep.
Pending any approvals through the
Yep.
planning board. And then as they decommission or abandon down to 6,
Yep.
then there won't be any more added after that.
you want to reduce the number to 6.
yes.
Janet Mills isn't going to like you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, I second that. Any other discussion? Okay, take a vote. All in favor? 4 in favor? Opposed? 1 opposed?
Tipping point for me is reducing the number to 6.
Excuse me? Rick, you got a comment?
Just a quick question.
Yes,
just
please.
So I clearly understand what the motion was.
Yep,
You were talking 6,
yep.
and what I heard was get down to 6 and then go back? No.
No, you already have, there's already 10 in
So
place.
10's okay.
10's okay. You're gonna leave them, you're gonna
We
leave
got
them,
12.
but it sounds like two aren't
10.
in production, so those will just have to come back to visit, and if there's ever room for them, they can be considered. But as they decommission or get abandoned or no longer exist, you've got to get down to 5 before you can consider another field.
And the limit's 6.
It limits 6.
Okay, so 10 changes to 6,
Correct,
and they have to get down to 5 to come back and consider one.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and I should have mentioned this during the last item, but you do have an opportunity to waive the second reading.
Make a motion to waive the second of the amendment to the solar.
I'll second. All in favor? 4 in favor, opposed? 1 opposed?
So might we return to item 122 and consider waiving the second reading of the
Do that
zoning?
if we tabled it.
Well, I think you would waive the second reading of the
For
two
two items.
that you did approve.
Somebody make a motion.
Make a motion to waive the 2 items that we approved for a second reading.
Second. Okay, all in favor? All are in favor. Thank you. So to clean up on that. So now we keep moving on. Let's go on to items 125, public hearing of residential care facilities moratorium ordinance, 100-day extension and amendment.
Yeah, and so as Jim just said, this would just extend this another 6 months to give the planning board the opportunity to work on the regulations regarding these residential care facilities. The amendment we previously talked about would exclude senior living facilities from this
Correct.
moratorium. So if the planning board gets any applications regarding that, they could, the developer could move forward with that. And then lastly, before we wrap up this discussion at some point, the planning board does need some guidance as to what the council will be looking for as part of these, this amendment. or excuse me, this ordinance for the residential care facilities.
Can I go first on this one?
You please, Andy. Yes, please.
Okay. I shamefully admit that I voted for this in the moratorium in the first place. I really hadn't considered all the ramifications. I am certainly not going to support it this time. When you read it off the town website, it says, uses the word group, okay? And that's not really part of the bottom of the body of the ordinance. But even if it was, that would, you can have a group of two, okay? So by coming back here and allowing what seems to be a preferred use, which is a residential nursing home, I'm assuming, you're eliminating the possibility of even putting a two-person home for people with cognitive disabilities, okay? Or physical disabilities, mental health disabilities, substance abuse disabilities, Alzheimer's and dementia, and that does happen under 65. This is a pretty shamefully discriminating ordinance under the circumstances. It just is. And I would like to know what the problem in A on the page 1, with the problem giving rise to the need for the moratorium still exists. What's the problem? And reasonable progress is being made to alleviate the problem giving rise to the need. What progress has been made? Because I am the town council representative to the planning board. And admittedly, I didn't make every meeting, but I suspect that there has been little or no progress made.
Hey, thank you, Andy.
This is just shameful. I'm sorry.
Yep, thank you.
I think, in my mind, I don't necessarily see a continued need for the moratorium myself. I think we had concerns about resource protection as far as general assistance, and I think with
Geez, you just got back on my good side, Aaron.
Yeah. Shannon?
Yeah, so the impetus for this was there was a nursing home that went out of business, and there were some inquiries made to the code enforcement officer about potentially locating a drug rehabilitation facility in that structure, and so we alerted the council, and we were asked to consider this moratorium.
Thank you for that refresher. Yes.
And two, I give the planning board a lot of grace, as we've heard tonight. They've had a lot on their plate recently, and so, and we're going to dump something else on their plate potentially after this. So that as everyone knows, it just takes time to work through these issues because they're really complex and in some cases convoluted.
I'm in support of giving you guys an extension. I think we need to have some more time to examine this as moving forward, but that's my take.
I'm in support of it
So
100%.
but anything from you guys want to discuss it or touch it at all? Planning board guys, members? And you don't have to. I'm just throwing it out there. Understand, we can do that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was time limitation was a factor here.
Correct.
The second one was, I don't think we really understood. We weren't at the town council meeting, so we didn't really know why the moratorium was in place. We're kind of like,
Understood.
so it'd be nice to get some guidance on what type of facilities, if we're gonna write and change the ordinance, what type of facilities, what's their
Yeah.
use? What is kind of the thought process behind that? I think would be helpful for us.
Lack of kind of,
Definitions would be
yeah,
a good one.
I think that's, yeah, I think for me, growing up in this town and being in this town, we had two nice nursing homes and good facilities for people. And I don't think the aging population is going away. And I think I wish we still had it here. Unfortunately, we lost both of them. And then, I think to Anthony's point, he was making that it maybe put some feelers out there for drug rehab, which puts a lot more on our GA, which is kind of tough. but then somebody came in and proposed, and maybe they would turn it back into a nursing home, which doesn't always pile onto the town's resources, but I think it's important, and I think that's why we made that exception. But I think we were kind of, I think we need to kind of define it with you guys, what we'd like it to be done, but I'm happy to extend it. Go ahead, Anthony, please.
And Dawn, please weigh in on this if you'd like, but when the drug rehabilitation facilities first popped up, we were caught a little bit flat-footed.
Yep.
Because there was no like clear definition of that as a use in our zoning ordinance. And so it was hard to sort of put that square peg into a round hole. And so I think part of the reason for this maybe amending the zoning ordinance is just to make sure that there is a clear definition about maybe different kinds of residential care facilities.
Correct.
Ben, I agree with that, Anthony.
I think that if you want to extend this, you're going to have to review the wording very carefully. I think if it looks anything like it does now, it's extremely discriminatory. Okay, this is really, I mean, someone could want to have a 2-person group home and you could say no if you use this. Okay. I mean, this needs to be changed. Orders to it, leaving us wide open to a lawsuit or God knows what.
I think the intention of the moratorium is to more narrow the verbiage and everything down.
And the use, making sure that we have a good,
However, but do we
We had
have an
180 days to stop discriminating against all these different uses, and we haven't done it.
right now, the
What's to make me think we're going to do it now?
exigent circumstance has gone away, so I don't know as if this would hold muster. In my mind, continue it. I think they can still work on the zoning side of residential care facilities and making definitions and doing that type of work. I just don't think we need to have a blanket moratorium. I mean, typically moratoriums are to address a very specific concern, and in this instance, I think that's, I guess you could say someone might pop up and build one, but ours, in my mind, it was more immediate, where we had a facility that existed that could have easily retrofitted or utilized. So now that it's not, I'm not.
So can we get at least 3
Hold on.
people here that
hold on a second. Rick,
will
Rick,
not read this?
the floor is yours, Rick.
Not to make excuses, but as you know, we have a lot on our plate.
Yes, I know you
We're
do.
working vigorously at every one of them,
Yep.
twice a month and sometimes extra. And we have the benefit of great people that dedicate themselves to the details.
Sure.
It would be very helpful on this subject if you all could give us 6 things that you want to see in that ordinance.
Yep.
And that would be a huge help.
Yep.
Now, that said, relative to need, there isn't a week goes by that I don't have a conversation with somebody in the senior ranks that have some affliction issue, dealing with memory loss, falling down, having to use either canes or walkers. We all know the stories.
Sure.
And there's a huge need in the state for the things we're losing is that kind of care. And a particular friend was telling me last night, where we're hitting balls at the driving range. He's dealing with his mother who's transitioning from assisted living to nursing home. And it's obvious. She's losing memory, using capability to movement, mobility, I guess is the right word. And that's not, a single example. There's a lot of folks in that. And we're the oldest, I think we're the oldest state in the union. And so we got a special challenge relative to not only creating rules around it, but creating it. And how do we do that within Winthrop in a safe and productive and cost-effective manner? I mean, you're talking about anywhere from 75 grand to 100 grand a year for one individual. I mean, it's huge cost. So somehow we've got to address it. So give us 6 things that you want in that ordinance, and we'll go to work on it. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Rick. I think the importance here is to give this extension so we can come up with that and give them some direction to go with that. I mean, I don't think us turning this moratorium away without things, because I think we've all, and correct me, we already voted on the adult, the nursing home.
Well, you just gave us some guidance that when we extended this moratorium, you'd like to carve out an exception for senior living, which
Okay.
this does. And it has been reviewed by the town's attorney.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's where one of my top things, I think Rick even get it here as a testimony that, that's something, and I think I've said it the last meeting and I've been saying it continually. We need some place for people to be taken care of and help. So
Thing is, this,
give you 90 days, yes.
this also says amended to exclude residential care facilities that exclusively serve senior citizens aged 65 and older. You have 50, 55-year-old people that have dementia and other mental illnesses. So you're cutting out that whole piece of population. I'm kind of going along with Aaron here. We had the exigent, you want to say that word for me, Aaron? Exigent circumstance. And that seems to have been alleviated. And why don't we just drop this whole thing? Because this is nothing but trouble going down the road. I can tell you that right now.
All right.
It's wrong.
Well,
and it shouldn't stay.
we've heard, yeah, public hearing, so we can, nothing else for out there. So we'll close the public hearing at 8:37. Items 126, consideration of residential facilities moratorium ordinance, 180-day extension and amendment.
Make a motion.
Please.
Move to approve the 180-day extension and amendment for the moratorium ordinance on residential care facilities as proposed.
I'll second. Any other discussion? All in favor? 3 in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed. And Rick, yes, and planning board members, we will get you, make sure you have what you I think we have you have some direction what we're looking for, so it's for the for our aging population, and kind of how we could. Yes, Shannon's got something right now, so that'd be great.
Defining the care facilities, number of people, protection of the neighborhood as far as lighting and parking around the facilities. If that's something, state licensing requirements.
Oh, hold on.
Don.
She's muted. Let me.
Dawn,
Yes,
are you hearing what Shannon's saying and what we've discussed here?
I am. Definitions, number of people, lighting, parking, and state licensing so far.
Thank you.
Consistency with the comprehensive plan as far as any kind of density requirements, zoning and land use, meeting with that. And then looking at what it impacts on our emergency medical services, feasibility of access for that. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
For a number. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on that.
How many facilities?
Oh, yeah, I'll get back to you on that one too.
Okay, thank you, Rick, and planning board members. All right.
Question. So the
Can
extension,
you introduce yourself?
Brandon Roberge.
Okay, thank you.
Just a clarifying question. The extension on the moratorium, I don't have that. He said like with the language as it's written. Does that have an exception for the senior living?
It does.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, but
Thank
thank you
you.
guys.
Appreciate it. All right, I'll also entertain a motion to, for the second reading.
Like to waive the second reading?
I'll second. All in favor?
Shit, no, but no.
Are you in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4 in favor,
Opposed.
opposed, and Andy's an opposed, so, okay. Great. Items 127, public hearing for data center moratorium ordinance. We're going to open up the public discussion at 8:40.
And again, this is something that we asked you guys if you wanted us to pursue this, and you indicated yes. In fact, I forwarded to you a email from a week or two ago from KV Cog that was encouraging towns to adopt moratorium so that they could set some guidelines, regulations regarding data centers, because the future of this in our state's unclear at this point, because as you know, the state considered a moratorium at one point. In fact, the legislature approved it. The governor vetoed it because it lacked a carve out for a specific project in J that was already underway. And so I've had some discussions with KV Cog. They are actually working on a template ordinance that has some regulations. And I think that could be sort of a baseline for our planning board to build off of.
Yeah. I don't think they need to recreate it. I think we could probably.
That said, if you have ideas to give them guidance on what you're looking for, I bet that would be appreciated.
Okay. So any other discussion on this?
No, I think it's important just to hear facts about the data centers.
Weren't we getting somebody to come in to speak about that?
Yes.
Yes, and in fact, there's a task force right now that's working on the state level looking at this. And if you're not getting those emails and you'd like to, let me know. I'll be happy to forward them to you.
Yeah, I don't know if I have. I really think because I don't have enough guidance to give you guys what to do, but I would like to have an expert come in and discuss the pros and cons of data centers.
I'm just going to say, I've done some research since this time. And if you look at Virginia, obviously the state of Virginia is having a significant issue, I think, as far as the impact to residents, whatnot, and the power grid, especially with this last heat wave where they required a lot of the data centers to go off of generators. And the generators, massive, loud. Obviously, there's pollution that occurs from that too. So I think it's super important to look and see where there are issues already. Adopt regulations that would address all of those. So there's information out there.
So I'll just ask the question. It's in my head. It might be a foolish one, but can we just ban them all completely in the town?
You can. It'd be a great way to get sued and you'd lose the suit. So and the reason for that, Jim, is simply because it is a lawful business. And so you can't just outright ban a lawful business from your community. But, this planning board has had some success in helping to manage, I was going to say, mineral extraction through an ordinance that it passed. And so I think, say again?
Yeah,
mitigate risks.
Mitigate risk.
Mitigated the risk of that and created an ordinance that really would direct something that could be obtrusive to specific areas.
To keep things safe. Yeah, I get it.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, some of the chief concerns Aaron mentioned is energy usage and, sort of what it would mean for the natural resources.
Yeah, pollution wise. Greg?
Yeah, just a couple of points, just so you know, our town ordinance does have commercial use and has small, medium, and large. I'm not opposed. I'm actually for the moratorium as a public citizen.
Okay.
We need to define a few things.
Sure.
Also, something when we learned from the solar ordinance is that when they get their CMP power interconnection agreement, they're not required to leave capacity. What that means is if they put a solar ordinance and there's capacity there and they use 99.9% of it, they're good, period. Which means the next house that gets built is going to be a problem. The next development that tries to happen is going to be a problem. So I think that's something that we've already got on our plate as far as part of that is making sure they allow additional capacity for growth, because data centers are big power consumers. And I did run through our ordinance. Most of them, as I see it, would be a large commercial, which means we'd be bound. Any medium or large commercial comes to the planning board. Okay. Small commercial just goes to the code officer.
Okay.
So, and we have, when it comes to us, we have the 14 bullets that allow us to look at groundwater, surface water, public, the neighbors. It allows us to look at all these extra factors that maybe Mark can't in the code department where he's, you know, just by himself. So that gives us the ability to look and consider all those 14 factors. So what we want to do though is make sure any data center goes to the large commercial requirements and meets all those needs. So this is just making sure you understand kind of, I think we have a starting point, but it's good to get your 2 cents.
No, I'm
and
glad,
thoughts.
you guys had, because I had nothing to give you really tonight. So I'm
that's
glad you
okay.
guys probably kind of have something
It's
to,
okay. We've got a good
to start
start on it as
stepping
far
towards.
as, you know, noise and neighbors, heat generation's a
Yep.
big problem. What are they using for water cooling? The
Yep.
state hasn't caught up yet for environmental compliance on how they use for water cooling and the damage that does to the ecosystem. So we've got a lot of pieces for that one. Unlike we did for for the last moratorium, I think this one, we have a lot more information. We just haven't really started on it yet.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so let's close it. Thank you. 8:47. We're getting faster, aren't we? Good. All right, items 128, consideration of data center moratorium ordinance.
I will move to approve the data center moratorium ordinance as proposed.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? 4 in favor, opposed? 1 opposed?
After that last vote, I'm done with moratoriums permanently.
All right. Oh,
We still need to waive the second
yeah,
reading of
just
that.
getting rid of that. Move to, can I get a suggested motion for to
Move to waive the second reading for the data center moratorium.
Second.
all in favor? 4 in favor, opposed? 1 opposed? Thank you, guys. All right. Moving on to items 129, discussion with Winthrop Utilities District Superintendent Aaron Chase on the Bowden Street water main replacement and other Winthrop Utilities District matters. Good evening.
Good evening.
You want to introduce yourself to
Yeah,
people?
so I'm Aaron Chase. I'm the superintendent for Winthrop Utilities
Thank you.
since December 2025. So I'm here to talk about the Bowden Street project. Our trustee, Roger Hanson, wrote a letter or a notice that's on the town website. So I didn't know if there's anything additional that you would like to know regarding the project or the schedule there.
Question?
Yep.
So it states that the crossing the mill stream will require a pipe to be placed under the stream bed. So are you looking at stopping or blocking the water on both sides? Lay that pipe?
It'll be done with,
Does that go?
essentially, it'll be an open trench. The bedrock won't allow for boring underneath a stream bed, so it will be dammed off and done in compliance with Department of Conservation and DOT with the bridge. It should take about a day or two to complete the crossing.
Has that already been coordinated? I mean, you said that goes through the state, but Cobussy Watershed, they maintain kind of the water levels and the town oversees the dam. Does that have any kind of
won't-
impacts?
It'll be on the lake side of the dam. It won't impact the dam or the lake water levels.
The discussion?
You said it's going to be 3 days for the stream crossing. How long is the
They're
whole
expecting
project?
the stream crossing to take 1 or 2 days to complete. It'll be pretty quick. They'll get set up and knock it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the,
Gonna be blasting to do that?
no, we're not expecting to blast. There will be probably some ram hoeing. So the water main's gonna start at Summer Street. It'll run on the west side of Summer Street. It'll cross the mill stream on the west side, on the lake side. It'll leave the right of way right about at Welch's, not Welch's Point, but Norcross Point access. So it'll leave the right of way there. It'll roll in about 20 or 30 feet beyond the bridge. It'll cross the stream, then it will roll back into the right of way, just past the guardrail. And it'll go to the Legion Hall. When it reaches the Legion Hall, it's going to cross the street back to the Legion side, and it will travel along the Legion property to the Green Street intersection where there's a water main it'll intersect with.
Are we planning on closing off the beach during that time?
No.
No.
No, the beach will be open and accessible through the duration of the project. To the best, it's our intent to keep it accessible, as well as there'll be one lane of traffic will be maintained across the bridge at all times. Also, pedestrian traffic and pedestrian assistance will be maintained. That's a DOT stipulation on the permit.
Thank you. So hold on there, let's get some, go ahead.
Just in regards to this project here, this probably, Kevin might even have to that, but timeline we're talking, is there like any potential for going over beyond or a complication?
We hope not. There's an unknown we know that there's ledge or bedrock involved in front of the Legion. We don't know exactly how much we're going to hit. So that's going to require, we know that from previous projects. The bedrock is not supposed to be very dense there, we're hoping. So it's going to take some ram hoeing. We're not sure how much, but there's no expected blasting. And we're going to coordinate that with Anthony and Kevin.
And then Kevin, did we have stuff for paving already set up, ready to go the instant they're done? Because I don't know is it Maine?
Yeah, Aaron and I have talked. We'll coordinate it as this thing progresses. And when he's done, he'll have closed in his trench and then we'll pave the whole thing.
That's listening in town.
That's not every road in town.
Is it operational?
Oh, yes. Well, not today.
Not today, but it could be.
It's in general everyday use, yes.
Is there ever been like a mitigation or safety plan regarding for the house that's below grade? Because I've been up there. Let go for any reason whatsoever. Structure is rated.
It would be a concern. I'm not sure. So every 3 years, that tank is inspected.
It's okay.
And it's actually starting on Wednesday. We just started draining the tank this morning. So the tank is actually going to be offline for the next couple of weeks.
Gotcha.
So it was built in 1952. So it's old, but it's well maintained. The coatings have been well maintained. So
I know there's a little bit of a berm, but probably wouldn't unless it redirect.
Say that again?
I said, I think there is a little bit of a berm around it, but I don't think it would be enough to.
It wouldn't contain, so
Yeah.
there's 500,000 gallons in that tank, so. But the tank is regularly inspected for structural stability and it's in good shape.
Is there any alarm that if the water for some reason dropped to a certain point that's?
Yes, absolutely, yeah, so we maintain 39 and a half feet of water in there. And if the water table drop and it modulates to 37 and a half feet, so it's a very small. And if it drops about a foot below our operating parameter, we all get alarms for it. I get alarms and the crew does, and yeah, so.
That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
I have faith.
All right. Shannon, you weren't here for a lot of this stuff, so we're jumping down to, I think it's item 131, discussion of hanging downtown banners. Now, I guess I can lead the discussion, or Roy, you want to lead discussion? This one? Take it over.
I just wanted to have a discussion. Recently down, had a couple banners hung up. I'm speaking with the lady that is doing the program. She said that she had an offer to of a contractor, a arborist contractor, fully insured, with a bucket truck to hang these banners and alleviate the town of the expense of doing it, and allow the Public Works Department to continue on with their day and get the work done that we're behind on, or however you want to look at it. We apparently, I mean, we can, Anthony can probably speak to it, but apparently there's some liability issues. I'm not real convinced that they're, you know, an arborist, I guess it's an insurance issue. And an arborist, somebody licensed as an arborist, to cut trees down over the top of people's houses. I just can't understand where the liability of hanging a banner 6 feet off the ground, 8 feet off the ground, whatever it is, where that insurance would be a concern for that. And I just want a discussion on it and see what everybody else thought.
Well, I think either they have to have insurance or the town has to agree to indemnify them, one or the other. I can't just go without insurance.
I understand that. I guess my point is they're a contractor.
Right.
They would have to have,
Licensed
they would have to have insurance.
And up to, and, you know, I look at it, the manpower that we have putting these up, we were down there for, I was down there for over 2 hours hanging 4 banners. And if somebody's willing to, you know, there's 3 guys for 2 hours and a machine that can be dedicated to something else, of somebody that's looking to help the community and provide a service, I just think it's a viable option.
As long as they have insurance.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all.
Okay.
Would you like to weigh in on anything?
I would.
It's an administrative function.
Yes, so first of all, with all due respect, I think this is an inappropriate conversation to be having at the council table, because as Aaron just said, this is an administrative function. Your job is threefold. You hire and fire the manager, you adopt the budget, and you set policy. And as Roy and I have talked about, it is totally appropriate for you guys to raise concerns or questions about what we're doing or how we're doing or whatever. But then once you do that, then it becomes a staff responsibility. And I've spoken with our public works director about what happened that day, and I'm totally comfortable with his explanation about what was going on. And even though an arborist may have insurance in order to cut down trees, that doesn't mean that that insurance covers a different activity, such as hanging banners in a public right-of-way. And so, I mean, we could do that, but they'd still have to provide us a certificate of insurance with us as an additional insured. And it doesn't matter if we're paying them or not paying them, or they indemnify us. It's a simple matter of all of our course that we've got to have an insurance certificate from anyone who does work
I think that, I don't think that's a concern.
on our behalf.
Correct. I don't think that's a concern.
So I make
And
a motion that we cancel this conversation and leave it up to Anthony.
Well, I'll just weigh in. I'll weigh in a little bit only, and I appreciate you talking about administrative, and I have all the faith in the public works. I mean, as I asked them, hey, can you guys dig behind the library and mitigate the water? I didn't have the time, and I understood that, and I appreciated that. But I think what Roy is proposing here isn't trying to stomp on anybody's toes, but if we had somebody willing to do the work and we can do it, they have the equipment to do it and are willing to do it, even if we paid them $10 a banner, then it covers them with their insurance. Pretty cheap money, and then it just keeps our guys from going up and doing the darn thing, right? And if they consider that a donation or whatever they have, but our guys don't have to do it. They've done a bunch of it, obviously, from the Legion's perspective. Those folks do it from in other towns. They're well equipped to do it. why wouldn't we just have them do it? Then our guys can go out doing other things that they're better equipped to do. So that's the discussion I think I had with you, Anthony, and I had it with Roy. And I wanted to hold council to be able to hear it. And this is the best place to do that without having an individual conversations. It's not about Kevin's abilities to manage his team. It's just maybe to, hey, this might be an opportunity, cheap money. I can throw something, or this person's willing to volunteer. I bet they have insurance. I know arborists that hang tree lightings for different towns and different places, go to Augusta, those guys are doing that sort of thing. So I'm sure it covers them to be up in their bucket truck, whether they're bringing a cat down from the tree or whatever they're doing. I'm sure they're covered to operate that piece of equipment, or driving it down the road and something happens to it. I'm sure they're covered with the insurance piece of it. So that's my thought. Again, not trying to step on your toes, Kevin's toes, by all means. Roy brought it to me. He said, hey, it makes sense if this person wants to do it and it alleviates our guys from doing it. It kind of makes a little sense to me. But again, it was just a discussion I'd like to have here at the council. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll leave it at that. So, okay. You good, Anthony? You want to? Okay. Thank you. All right, I think that ends that. Let's go to other business, public comment. Do we have any public comment now here at the end of the meeting? No? Okay, great. Town manager's report.
Okay, so
Just out of here, Anthony.
I'm going to try. We're
Thank
going
you, sir.
We put out some information on our website and our Facebook page a little earlier, but the revaluation field work will begin tomorrow. And so those guys are going to be working most weekdays, approximately 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Through September. If people will let them into their homes, it'll take like 30 minutes tops for them to do their assessment. And as part of the information we put out, we explain sort of why that's a little bit important, and to please cooperate with them. And no one's under any obligation to allow someone onto their property or into their home, but it will result in the most accurate assessment possible. And they'll be hitting about 12 to 15 homes a day. And so team of 4 guys. So they'll be covering, 50 to 60 homes a day. So if people have questions, they're welcome to contact us. We're continuing to have some conversations about how we're going to handle youth sports beginning in the fall. I think now is the time where we should be advertising for recreation committee members and spin that group back up in order to provide us some input and some suggestions about how we go about doing that. I'm going to assume that that's not going to give anybody any heartburn if we start.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they should be here. 2 people missing tonight, obviously couldn't make it. Almost every committee is short 1 or 2 people.
I'll just add to that too, is that if anybody here can just start talking to people, because I've had many conversations with people that had concerns, and I gave them opportunity to reach out to potentially participate, and none have done so. So.
Yeah. The other part of this is that in our conversations with Kennebec Valley Y, they're not exactly sure that they are needed as part of the youth sports landscape. And so, and I'm not committing us to anything at this point, but at the same time, just so that we're not caught flat-footed on this, I'd also like to start advertising for a part-time person who might be the person who sort of administers that youth sports program. And the Kennebec Valley Y says they think that could be done for, maybe like 15 hours a week. It might even be less.
Why wouldn't they be part of that where we had that before? Just
Well, different organization.
understand that.
First of all, what their study of that situation is that Winthrop is really fortunate to have this cadre of volunteers, parents who do an exceptional job of sort of running the leagues after the kids have been registered, the games have been scheduled, the umpires or referees have been scheduled, the uniforms have been bought, the equipment's been bought. So they think that, and they think that in this instance, it's important to have someone who's from the community doing that so that they know the landscape and so that they have some credibility. And so they think that those sort of administrative functions, you don't need a full-time person, just a part-time person and the right software that people can use for the registrations and the schedule.
So what was their role? What would their role be?
They're definitely doing the after-school program.
Okay.
And next summer, they're going to be running the day camp, summer day camp, and the waterfront program. And I've had lots of conversations with Joel Stoughton about both the youth sports and the mini camps that they have. I call them mini camps. It's, you know, the week-long camps for all the different sports.
Understood.
That if we have someone who can help just, again, with the registrations and the scheduling of that stuff, the coaches sort of take it from there.
I would agree partially with that statement, being involved in that with all three of my kids and part of it when I was a kid. It's not as simple as just turning it over to the coaches, because that's not what we want. You're going to want a director to be able to hold the line and do different things in that role. So we're going to have to, and I don't know if it's a part-time, I would be curious of what the hours is going to take, but we're going to need somebody to be a director
Well, let me,
of that type function. Otherwise, we're going to lose it, because you can't leave it up to the parents, because they're going to get them to make their own decisions and make their own rules, and a lot of things are going to take place. So you're going to have somebody that's pretty fair on that. So
Didn't Mike Griswold from Monmouth used to teach here? Didn't he have a conversation possibly with you about taking that job on alongside of Monmouth?
listen, I don't want to,
I'm about to talk about that.
particular.
Didn't a gentleman from Monmouth have a, now that I blew it?
that's fine. I'm thinking, I'm thinking as a whole, we maybe want to look at that. And I don't know how that will look.
Well, I
I mean,
guess,
maybe I'm just a single person here.
I guess
waiting.
my concern, Jim, is that if we were to hire a full-time person, will we have enough for that person?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm thinking now. Is the Y, they're going to take over the waterfront responsibility. So that's the Y, is that going to be the swim lessons and the lifeguards? And what, so that's all that piece, and then after-school care. And then you said the summer programs in which that incorporates what's activities that they're doing after school or after in the summertime right now.
So the summer day camps.
Okay.
And then there'll be opportunities for Winthrop families to participate in KV Can, which is over in Reedfield. And they do some different sorts of activities.
Okay.
Kennebec Valley Y administers that program. So,
I'm just concerned of leaving it up to, I guess I feel better if it's a committee. But I'm just fearful of leaving it to nothing with the parents. I just think that's, it's roaming all the time. You get different people volunteer for the coaches, and they're there for their kids, and you're just going to need somebody to have some type of institutional knowledge as they're putting things together, putting a field schedule together or practice schedule together, scheduling the gyms, the practice time, and all that sort of thing. You need a lead person that's going to be able to that role. And can we get a volunteer to do it? I don't know.
well, and maybe I haven't made myself clear. That's what the hired person would do for however many hours a week that we do that. That person would be doing that.
Sure.
And again, talking with Joel, he doesn't disagree with this approach as long as we find the right person from the community.
I guess that goes with said without any position, really, doesn't it?
Fair enough. But anyway, I guess my concern is now we're in early July.
Yeah.
And typically, the registrations start in late summer.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm not trying to commit us to anything, but
no, I just feel like it's a little bit of curveball, because I thought they were going to take over all function of it.
Well,
and now I feel like it's not. So now I'm feeling like we're caught on our heels on this one.
Well, so again, this discussion just happened with them like last week.
Understand.
And
I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying,
yeah.
I thought they're going to take over exactly the way
Hey,
it functioned.
I was a bit surprised too. I went in there, and I said, because I'm told like those youth sports programs financially pretty much support themselves, except they do some fundraising for scholarships. And I even offered, I said, and I'll contribute to the scholarships or whatever. And they're like, well,
It's a big piece in the town, and I know they do a lot of different things and been involved in a lot of different functions. And
well, and I think, Jim, if we can spin up this committee,
yeah,
I think
that might control it.
I think that that's going to help immensely as far as tabbing different people to fulfill different functions.
We'll need a town council rep too.
Well,
And I'm not volunteering.
yeah. Well, Aaron actually is the,
And Anthony and I talked about this because I'm
Go
the
for it.
liaison. But
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm just concerned, that's all, but go ahead.
yeah, well, and I guess, Jim, my concern right now, my overriding concern is we need to get a ball rolling
Yep.
so that
I would agree.
we have youth sports in the
Full
fall.
lapse in the fall.
Yeah.
I agree.
and we can always.
Yep.
So again, so you guys are okay with me going ahead and advertising for a position and we'll see, hopefully someone good from the community steps forward and says, hey, I'd like to do that.
Oh, you mean for the position?
Yes. For the position and the committee, both.
Well, committees for sure.
And the position would be what we were paying like, what, 17, 18 for Lonnie?
Yeah, and the Kennebec Valley Y, when they looked at our budget, they thought that an amount that approximates that.
Facilitate with Joel and you pick some.
Yes, I had that conversation with him today. And we'd like some members of this committee, hopefully, to participate in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Also, and I don't want to belabor anything, police commission. So, we might like to start looking forward to a police commission to sort of be the group as opposed to the more nebulous group that we have working on police consolidation. I sent out an email about that, but I didn't get any response. So I'm interested in your thoughts.
I know I talked to you in your office, but yeah, I think I agree with, and I watched them on the select board meeting. And it sounded like there was a pretty decent agreement on non-elected individuals on the commission, since it's going to come to us anyways. So sooner the better. I don't know how are we going to go about like giving our side of the commission pointing? Is that going to see through Shannon?
Yes. Yes.
I was gonna say, like, I would think it would make more sense to have the commission be an elected position. So that way we're not influencing those appointments. Not to say that we would, but I'm just saying that that's a perspective.
Was thinking the same.
I mean,
Wait, that might.
like the library board of trustees, they present
Oh, I see.
they
The initial
present a
one,
budget to the committee, the council. There's another board too.
initially we would have to.
Well, no, I mean, if you guys were interested in elected body, then we would start.
I mean, we could appoint maybe for the first year, if elections aren't until November, they wouldn't take their position till January. You're already through one budget cycle. You're starting it with the directors anyway. But I'm saying like, yeah, you could appoint that for the remainder of the year and then have them elected in November, and therefore after have it like terms, like we'd probably do 3 from Winthrop and 2 from Monmouth, something like that.
I know they discussed negotiations between the two elected bodies, so how are we going to negotiate with the select board?
I have a little input on the negotiation. I was talking to Anthony, and one of the things that has sold me on this whole thing and been supportive of it since the beginning is a cost savings.
Yeah.
And during the conversation, I want to be assured there is a cost savings.
We can't assure that. Because I mean, I talked with the chief today. He and Nick are going to work on a budget, but that was not the driving force behind this.
Was a driving force.
Okay, that might have been a driving, okay, that might have been a driving force for you, Roy, but the chief and I have been very, very careful about not promising that this is going to result in a cost savings. It's about ensuring better.
All for the other benefit.
Roy, I'm just telling you, we have never said that this is going to result in a cost savings because we're not sure
Language
about
would be-
that.
Maybe say,
Well, I'm in alignment with Roy because I thought it would be just a shared expense and making a regional expense, or it's more of a regional thing because you got two towns sharing an expense. And I'm not looking to expand it. I'm not looking to expand it. So I mean, it should be a cost savings just naturally.
Jim,
Go ahead.
the feeling I got was that we weren't to expect a huge cost savings, but we would probably end up getting a higher quality, better service, and more of a police presence without spending a ton more money. That's the way I read that thing. Okay, so we didn't,
Agree with the. The other benefits, what I'm saying,
I mean,
also under the understanding that that it was guaranteed, no. Highly likely, yes, that we're gonna save.
well, I mean, it goes without saying that, Monmouth is smaller than we are, right? So maybe we'll save a third of the chief's salary. Okay, but that'll get chewed up pretty quick,
would you take authority
right? Yeah.
to make budgeting decisions in regard, I'm not just going to say yay or nay, right? We can say, we don't like this, come back.
Well, I mean, what we've talked about is a model that is similar to the school budget and the library budget. So you say, we're not comfortable with this figure, come back with another figure, as opposed to cut this line, cut this line, cut this line. That would sort of be more the purview of the police commission. And again, don't get me wrong, there might be cost savings, but I don't think that they will necessarily be significant. I mean, Monmouth may pay more than what they are currently paying because, they're going to have access to detectives and nines and that sort of thing.
We're also talking about having 2 lieutenants, right? That you talked about. We're talking about increasing the force.
Well, you would have 2 lieutenants. Currently, they both work day sides. One would be day side, one would be night side moving forward. At some point, there may be some adjustment in the number of sergeants as a result of that sort of supervision during the day and the night. You probably have you'd have maybe one fewer administrative assistant between the 2 departments because the chief has one here and has one there. You might have lesser facility cost over there than you would here because this would be the
We're going to
police.
maintain both facilities. Is that the thought process?
No, it's not the thought process. I'm just saying that's a potential cost savings right there. But there are also going to have to be some adjustments in pay scales and so forth so that you don't have officers from one community necessarily making more than the others. Those are negotiations that would have to occur with the union. And so I just don't want anyone to pin their belief on that there's going to be like cost savings and that they may be significant.
I would just say, the way I would look at it is say, I don't want to see a increase in cost. Be as if we were investing on a regular schedule. There's only one way to know.
I view it as combining both units. Go ahead and re-letter the cars, Monmouth, Winthrop, PD, and have it a nice day. And then they've just expanded the area of coverage. So that's how I view it.
I just know there's 2 places you don't want to chisel too hard. One is the fire department, the other is the police department. When you dial 911, you expect people.
Well, I think they respond pretty well right now.
I agree.
Both Monmouth and Winthrop.
That's why I say don't
as it
chisel.
is now. So I'd saying.
Be happy.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's just, they have good backup. I mean, I thought it was a savings, so we wouldn't have to have, we could have, more people on coverage at night and, or if we're gonna, and we can consider having the sheriffs cover at night. I think that was one talk about it as well. But I mean, there's lots of things here, but I just think as we move forward with this, I think we make sure to do it with all, I'm not saying we're definitely gonna save a ton of money, but it's a lot of shared resources and it should benefit both communities.
It will definitely be shared resources, for sure.
And there's no community should be shouldering the lion's share of it. It should be shared appropriately, the expenses.
And it won't be, I wouldn't expect it to be 50-50, Jim, because we're, a little larger than Monmouth is. And it's one of the things that we haven't settled on. I mean, it's one of the reasons we kind of like a police commission is, okay, so what's the funding formula going to look like? Is it just going to be a 60-40 split of the entire, cost of the combined operation? Or do we employ a formula similar to what we do with our ambulance service where, the number of calls per community factors in there? Well, you use a 3-year rolling model so that, any 1 year does, that's correct. Yeah. So these are reasons that we're interested in potentially moving forward with a police commission.
My thought is the fact that combining resources, combining personnel, getting better services, overall services that way. I am not for blowing the department because we have more services. We have both towns now contributing, blowing the department up and adding a bunch more costs.
That's certainly not
wants to do that.
that's certainly not the intent.
Annan, go
I
ahead.
just have 2 or 3 questions real quick. Are you working on or drafting some kind of interlocal or operational agreement currently?
We've been discussing that, yes.
Is that something that the commission or the committee would be taking over kind of to draft?
Yes.
And so is this already being the combined police force being implemented now in fiscal year 27? I mean, how is that working then?
Operationally, there's a lot of cooperation, but it's nothing formal.
Kind
Still
of
have
still the
separate
same,
budgets.
same as it
They'll
was?
have separate budgets, yeah,
Okay, yeah, so same as it was and kind of working through.
yeah,
Okay, sounds good.
yeah.
Thank you.
But yes, I mean, what we've talked about is essentially one community will likely be contracting for police services from the other community and then contributing whatever their contribution is financially.
All right.
Anything else,
Red
Mark?
flags.
Yeah, I'll just cut the rest of this short. I'm going to be out the next 2 days and then I'll be out next week. So if y'all need something the next 2 days, contact the town clerk.
All right. Oh, Anthony, can I ask you when, can you get those dates firmed up for, what was it, November, December? You asked us to change the dates to accommodate your vacation. February, March, whatever it was.
Yeah.
My calendar is booked out.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I know. I'm trying to remember an email I read 3 weeks ago.
Great. Roy, any comments?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor? We're out.
Thank you.
yeah, I'm booked out, so the sooner I know about that, the better it's going to be.
Night. Thank you, everybody, for attending, hanging out. One for the break.